Hello, everyone. We're going to start in about 5 minutes or so. So, if you want to grab a drink or coffee and that, but this is kind of the 5 minute warning, and we'll get going. So, if you want to come in and grab a seat, that'd be great. Thank you. Just move. Oh, check, 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 check. Thank you. This is the 2 minute warning, folks. We're down from 5 to 2, so we're getting ready to go here. If you could just grab a seat, that'd be great. We're going to go in about 2 minutes. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the online viewers for tuning in tonight as well. My name is Bruce Wood. I'm the chairman of the PEI Standardbred Breeders Association, and who are your hosts for the weekend. At this time, maybe we'll go over the scheduled events for this evening and tomorrow as well. So we'll just have a quick introduction here, and we'll go on to some great panels. With Looking to the Future panel, be hosted by Nick Oakes and Peter McPhee, with Tara Baird, Brett Clow, Zach Conway, and Brendan Curran. Actually, it's I guess Landon Campbell is going to take Brett's place, so that's great of you, Landon, to step in there last minute. And then succeeding in harness racing with Cam and Peter, again doing the moderating with Amber Campbell, Jen Doyle, Alexis Gass, and Michelle Myers. And then we have our Jill and Mark and Corey and Mike McGuigan going to be selecting the champion panel. So it's going to be a great night, and tomorrow we'll move into the education portion, beginning at 10 o'clock. And after tonight, right outside the door, folks, in case I forget later, right outside the door into the older card room or the Old Women's Institute just to the left, there's a social there afterwards, so please attend that, and it's meant to be a great evening. The education portion tomorrow will begin at 10 o'clock with a veterinarian panel again with Dr. David Best, and talking about breeding and foaling and preventative measures during the busy breeding season. Dr. Jen Burns talking about nutrition for mares and young horses, and Dr. Amy Doyle will give a presentation on OCD in young horses and prevention and treatments. Then, of course, we have lunch, and then Julie's going to go over the programs that the industry is offering. We're going to have yearling presentation with Dean and Ashley Wilson are going to be zoomed in here, and Nick's going to moderate them with a Q&A. Lee Drake's going to give a short presentation with Standardbred Canada and introduce Barb Wilson and Joy Power, who will be doing business with horse business with Standardbred Canada. So a very informative evening, and tomorrow and after tomorrow we're going to have our annual meeting, just a short meeting with our PEI Standardbred Breeders Association. So that's about it. I'll give a little bit of background on the Standardbred Breeders Association, although I do feel like I'm repeating myself. It was formed in November of 2019. It's developed to develop strategies and initiatives on behalf of the PEI Standardbred breeders that will enhance and grow the PEI breeding sector. We develop 4 pillars to work ourselves under, one being breeders incentives, and that's where we come up with like foal incentives and things like that. Number 2 would be mare and stallion acquisition incentives, and that's our mare acquisition program that we've been, the industry's been running into year 2 now. Education, which is why we're all here this weekend, and youth, and what we're doing, trying to get into some schools, naming the foal contest, and things like that. The industry, the PEI Standardbred Breeders Association is composed of 10 directors. Haley Curry, Nick Oakes, Cam McPhee, Jamie Whalen, Mike Clary, Scott Rollison, Blaine Thiebaud, Garth Cole, Bobby Gordon, and myself. I'm in my final year here as chairman, so after tomorrow we'll have a short meeting in with, I believe it's 10 days time or 2 weeks time, and elect a new executive. Dr. Martha Mellish sits in as ex officio for educational advisement on the board. Blaine McPherson, as chair of the Industry Association, also sits on to our meetings. Ken Oakes, the policy development supervisor for the Department of Finance, sits in, and as does Julie, of course. I'd also like to thank our event sponsors for this weekend. Obviously, the Government of PEI, Atlantic Post Calls, JD Marine and Diving, Agri-Co-op, Phillips Agri Services, Cardigan Feed Services, Bricky by the Bay Stables, Halmac Farms, Redland Farms, Windermere Farms, Woodmere Farms, and of course Red Shores. I'd also like to thank our organizing committee members from our Breeder Association, Cam McPhee, Nick Oakes, Haley Curry. Special thanks to Ken Oakes and Peter McPhee for their guidance and their time, and especially Julie. Julie does a trainload of work, and we're really, really happy to have her as a member of our industry and as our executive director. So thank you, Julie, for all your work for this weekend. I'd also like to thank Red Shores for their having their great facility, and David McKenzie and Lee Drake. This time, I guess I'd just like to say a couple words, and in my final time in this, it's you know, whether your role in this horse industry is that of an owner, a trainer, a driver, a caretaker, a groom, a breeder, a volunteer, a board member, an industry partner, or an inspired youth, we all play an equal part in the success of our future. To many of us, it feels like the world has moved ahead 10 years in the last 3 years. I encourage us all to look at change with optimism and excitement. This weekend is an opportunity to share ideas and to move our great industry forward. The most sure way to remain stagnant and not move forward is to continue to do things exactly the same way year after year. We just need to look at the success in the last month that our industry has had. Who would have thought 10 or 20 years ago that an island sired horse would dominate Mohawk Woodbine preferred classes 5 weeks in a row? So congratulations to Salisbrook Victor, Woodmere Steel Deal, and their sires. Last weekend, So Much More, Island Bred Horse, driven by Freddie and Gail's son, James McDonald, who also won an O'Brien Award. It's just a real testament to our PEI industry, and congratulations to the connections and all the success and the great year that we were able to have in the harness racing industry. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Honourable Mark McLean, Minister of Finance and Ministerial responsible for harness racing. Minister McLean was elected as an MLA for District 16, the Cornwall Meadowbank District, in November of 21 by-election, and appointed the Minister of Finance and Minister responsible for harness racing in July of 2022. Following his graduation from UPEI, Mark founded and operated companies in the information technology field, and most recently had served as the Executive Director of Golf PEI. He has also been an active community volunteer with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of PEI and the Stars for Life Foundation, as well as in ringette, field hockey, and soccer. Mark and his wife live in Cornwall along with their 3 daughters. Welcome, Minister McLean.
Thanks, Bruce. I didn't know I was going to get a little bio tonight. I appreciate that. Thank you. Before I start, I just, on behalf of Premier King and the province of PEI, I want to welcome everyone to the 2023 Horse Breeders Conference. Again, as Minister of Finance, the last few weeks have been a lot of budgets and spreadsheets, so it's nice to have a little break from looking at all those numbers the last couple of weeks. So when they told me this was on my schedule, I was like, yeah, I'll certainly like to attend for sure. I also like to thank the organizing committee from the PEI Standardbreds Association, who put together a really good program this weekend. Very interesting, the panel and then the talks tomorrow. Another special thanks to the PEI Harness Racing Industry Association for their leadership. The combined leadership in this room leaves us with great confidence in the future. So I don't want to hold the night up, so I'll end up by saying that our government truly appreciates and recognizes the important role harness racing plays here in PEI. It's our heritage, and we are very proud of it. I also want to thank you for having me here to celebrate a great industry, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Minister McLean, and thank you for taking the time to join us here this evening. Money is not the most important thing needed to have a successful harness racing industry, but it's a close second to oxygen. At this time, I'd like to introduce the PEI Harness Racing Industry Association Chairman, Blaine McPherson, to say a few words. Blaine has been a great leader for our industry the last couple of years and has done a great job, and we'd thank him for his time.
Thank you, Bruce. Welcome, everyone. The reason I would really like, I just jotted down a few notes, Mr. Minister. I was really thankful that you were here today, and we really want to thank how your government and your colleagues are really helping us out. It's been really well. I mean, we had problems there last year here, and you know, your group really helped us out. Now, I wanted to give a bit of a history because you're relatively new in this game. In 1999, and I was a part of it, some of the other people in this room, Mr. Binns' government developed the PEI Harness Racing Industry Association. And the whole idea was there were many different groups, and everybody was going different places and trying to look for funding and that kind of thing. So every group in the industry is Atlantic Sire, Standardbred Breeders Association, so they came under it. The Maritime Breeders, which are the stallion owners, they came under it. The PI Colt Stake, which is what we are here, is the breeders group, and that came under the PI Colt Stake. And there were horse associations in Summerside, horse associations in Charlottetown. They came in. Both tracks, the Summerside track and the Charlottetown track, they were on the board. So that took everybody together. And then there were 3 members at large, and I think they did a very good job. And as of this board, Michael Curry and Garth Cole from Spring Valley, and myself, we are the 3 at-large people, okay? And also ex officio is Standardbred Canada, Department of Finance, and the Racing Commission. So that's the whole team, I guess. We meet the second Wednesday of every month, and we have a lot of committees set up. This is one committee, and Bruce is the chair of that, and we have all different committees. So 3 years ago, we developed a 10-year plan. And if you don't have a copy of that, Mr. Minister, we can have Julie send you one, because you do have it in your office. And in that plan, we had about 35 slides. We presented it to the Premier, and we presented it to the Minister of Finance at that time. And in that, we were trying to say if we could get more money every year, we could increase the brood mares, we could increase the babies, we could increase all the different things, we could increase the purses. So that's gone up, and over the last 3 years, now there was an election that year and 4 years ago as well, and the word on the street, there's going to be another one. I was listening to the Premier last night, and he said sometime in 2023 there's going to be an election. And when there was an election 4 years ago, it was around this time of year, the announcements were coming out, or maybe March. The industry got $750,000 in that one year. Sorry, Garth, there you are there. And $750,000 the next year, and they were compounded, okay? And then every year after that, we put our 10-year plan in, and we got an increase of $200,000 every year, which is just, it's really been wonderful for the industry. So we're up to $3.3 million and some odd now coming from your department. And Julie and our executive, Julie here and our executive, we're meeting on Monday to go over the budget again. And we're quite hopeful that 200 that we talked about 3 years ago will go in as well. It's a huge help for us. So anyway, and because of all of those increases that your government and every government since 1999 on PEI has really been very supportive of the industry. Because of all that, in Atlantic Canada, I would say PEI racing is the envy of all 4 provinces in Atlantic Canada. Would you not say, everybody? I mean, my God. And then we work, we're working hard on genetics, and Bruce, of course, is an excellent genetics person in both cattle and equine. But when you see 3 maritime foaled horses finish 1, 2, 3 in Mohawk, I mean, that's really quite a thing. And 2 of them are maritime sired, which is really something. So anyway, I wanted to talk to you about that, just to keep it fresh in your mind, that if there was some help before the election, it would be wonderful. If you need that 10-year plan, we have lots of copies we could send to you. But we were trying to increase babies here, like more mares, more babies. We put a foal incentive program. I'll give you a prime example. 4 years ago, we had 150 foals that took up on our fall incentive program. Julie tells me Wednesday we have 202 this year. So that tells me we're heading in the right direction. And like Bruce always says, if we can get excellent sires in here with excellent genetics, we'll have more maritime bred horses that are leading Mohawk. But it's all about genetics. I mean, one stallion can produce, can have 50 foals. A mare can have 1 foal. So that's where we have to go. We have to continue that. We were almost out of the trot business here. And I have to thank the Industry Association for helping 7 partners who went in on a stallion that was being sold in New Jersey and lent $20,000 to buy it. It cost $40,000 to get them here and all of that. 20 from the partners and 20 from the industry, and it's being paid back. If that wasn't there, there'd be no trot business. There was no trot stallions. So that's the kind of thing that's been happening over the last 3 or 4 years. So anyway, really want to thank you, your cabinet, everybody. I had a great conversation yesterday with the Minister of Agriculture, and she's certainly very, very supportive. We know there was an issue in Truro there over the last month or so. She's going to try to get the message across to the people in Nova Scotia, because we need to be there as an industry in the Maritimes, not just PEI. PEI can't handle it all alone. But anyway, thanks to you, thanks to your government, thanks to the governments ever since we put this together in 1999. It's really helped the whole business here, and I like to call it a business, not a hobby, a business. And Bruce's group have done a lot of work meeting for this weekend. Education is one of the mandates on our board, so education is tonight and wasn't it great to have kids, girls, and old fellas all making presentations here tonight? I mean, it's great. Amber almost won the driver championship. I mean, it's wonderful. Things are moving. So anyway, I don't want to take too much time, Bruce. I'll be here all night. So anyway, thanks very much, folks. We have a good crowd, so thank you.
Thank you, Blaine. And we'll get the evening going tonight here, folks, with our first panel. As I said, Nick and Peter are going to moderate the panel, and welcome Tara, Landon, Zach, and Brendan.
Our first panel tonight is looking to the future and features 4 young, up-and-coming talents in the industry. Tara Baird, Zach Conway, Brendan Kern, and Landon Campbell have a lot to be proud of in harness racing. Here's a look at some of their recent accomplishments on Prince Edward Island.
Mystical Gal and the Blue Knight are clear, turning for home. One Hot Penelope is second. Cutter Loose in third. Deep in the stretch now. Mystical Gal and the Blue Knight. Hughes, he's got the treble and the filly goes all the way. Filly bred by Elmer Fallen. Trained by Nick Oakes, the Blue Knight Jason Hughes triples up. In this stakes action-filled Labor Day program, Vicky Everyday not far away. Slightly Twisted is right with them in third, and they turn on down the home stretch. Vicky Everyday is taken over late. KCK Girlies, Slightly Twisted, Somebody's Me. Vicky Everyday for Zach Conway. Vicky Everyday arriving at the 7th race winner's circle. Zach Conway in the driver's seat will guide her to a new pacing record tonight. The mile 158-1.
3/4 in 1, 29 and 3. Down the stretch they come. You Ain't Dolly looking to go all the way. Lock her up the rail. Here's the line. You Ain't Dolly in line to Mark Bradley. Second, that is Lock Her Up. You Ain't Dolly arriving at the 8th race winner's circle. Owned by Kelsey Kern of Peaks. David Amadio of Port Morion, Nova Scotia. Trained by Brendan Kern and driven to victory by Mark Bradley.
Landon Campbell is off to a fast start in his young harness racing career. Landon had a driving win last season, guiding Philly 47 to victory on the PEI matinee circuit at Panette Raceway. Family and friends were on hand in the winner's circle to congratulate Landon. Landon was also a winner at the PEI Matinee Banquet, receiving the Rising Star Award for 2022. His future is bright in the harness racing industry, and he'll be back at Island Tracks in 2023. Please welcome Tara Baird, Zach Conway, Brendan Curran, and Landon Campbell to the 2023 Island Horse Breeders Conference.
Isn't it fantastic to have a young group of people like that with such accomplishments so early in their careers? So we're going to go through, we have a few questions for each person. We'll start with Zach, you're closest. Zach, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in harness racing?
Okay, thanks for being here tonight. I'm honored to be able to be on a panel and talk about the sport that we're all involved in and we put a lot of time into. So I got involved in harness racing through my father, Paul Conway. He's been training horses his whole life. He got into the business through his father, and I started going to the races with my grandfather and father when I was around 9 or 10 years old on the matinee circuit. And then I started grooming for my father whenever he was racing in Summerside and Charlottetown, and I ended up going for my trainer's license whenever I was 16 years old, and I drove on the matinee circuit since I was 14 years old. And I got my driver's license whenever I was 19. So it's been, I really thank him a lot for giving me the opportunities and getting me involved in the sport.
Yeah, and the matinee program was very important to everything that's happened in your career.
Yeah, it's, it would be very hard for me to get where I was without the matinee program because it taught me a lot of early lessons. And, there's nothing else like it out in Canada that I know of. And we're very fortunate to have it here on PEI. And I really hope that it's able to keep going, and we see younger drivers entering the circuit every single year, and to be able to keep youth in that program is it's crucial to being able to train new drivers and keep the industry moving forward.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of little boys grow up, they want to be like their dad. Now, I don't know if it fits anybody better than this young man right here. You got some big shoes to fill, but we kind of know how you got involved in harness racing, but how old were you when you really started getting actively involved in your dad's stable?
I was probably about 8 to 10 years old whenever I really started getting into horses again. I started about 8, 10.
And you're 15 now, correct?
Yeah.
And it's kind of become a family thing for you guys. Your brother and your two sisters, they're involved too, and you have a lot of work there, but you're very active every race night.
Yeah, my sister always likes to help and everything, but it's good.
Yeah, it's a family business for sure. No more than Mr. Curran here, who gets it from both sides of his family. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in harness racing.
So on my mother's side, I'm a fourth generation participant in the harness racing industry, dating back to, I think, Ma Polton, who was one of the first women to win a Canadian stake race back well before I was ever thought of. And on my father's side as well, he grew up on a farm out in Albury Plains, and there was always workhorses around and things like that. And then he was given a mare by the name of the Bronze Lady, and the Bronze Lady then produced Just Hope, and Just Hope actually was invited to one of the first editions to the Gold Cup and Saucer out of Maine. A relative of ours actually was the trainer of the horse. But, my dad got into the horses that way, and then he became quite good friends to the man to my left's great uncle, Red Jim McDonald, and that's actually where I could say I jogged my first horse and had my first really soiree into training horses was with Jimmy, and somebody I always looked up to, and kind of a bit of an idol in my life, and in my mom's side we have the Polton family of 175 of them, I'm sure, that have all been in harness racing, and they've all been involved in their own way, and we have our own breeding farm at my parents' place, and where we've turned out a couple of nice fillies and a couple of nice horses. Thanks.
For sure. And at the end, we have Tara Baird, who's made some big investments in the industry the last couple of years. And she's selling some nice yearlings at the sale in Croppo. You had a nice New Jersey bred colt you sold for, what was it, $29,000?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah. She'd remember. So tell us a little bit, how did you get involved in harness racing? How did you get started?
There's a gray-haired fella sitting up there that twisted my arm a little bit. My grandfather is Elmer Folland, and probably close to 10 years ago now, I started going to his barn and giving him a hand, mucking stalls and cleaning the barn up. And he only had one mare at the time, and really enjoyed foaling season and being there when the foals came. And it wasn't long into it that I decided to get my own mare, so we went out to Brian Andrews on a Saturday afternoon and picked up Warden Woody, that's Mystical Gal's mom, and she's been with us ever since.
Yeah, and you're getting even heavier involved all the time.
Yeah, we've we have 4 mares together there now, so.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Pete, you have a couple questions for them, don't you?
Zach, just you've worked on some different sides of the harness racing industry, not only on the track, but can you fill us in a little bit about what you've been doing the past couple of years?
Yeah, so for the last 2 falls and during the summer since June this year, I was working alongside Julie Jameson at the PEI HRIA office, and it's been a really great experience to get to work with her alongside being able to be participating as a driver and a trainer and owner, because there's so much that goes into putting on a race card and scheduling stakes and putting on the whole show that everybody watches that so many people don't know about. And it definitely takes a village to be able to do this, and there's a lot of behind the scenes, and it's a lot of hard hours, and even to put on the Atlantic Classic sale, like from the moment I got there in June to the minute I left at the end of November, I worked in the sale. And Julie puts in a lot of hours, and she works really hard for being able to keep this whole thing running. And it's really been great to be able to get that opportunity to kind of take a step back and be able to see the industry as a whole, and not just from working with the horses, but being in that office and getting to see the numbers and how all the inner workings of what it takes to do this.
I think it's important for people to recognize that there are other jobs in the industry besides being on the track. That's obviously very important, but also lots of other things to do in the industry.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important for youth too, because some people may say, well, I'm afraid of horses, so I may not be able to get into the industry. But there's so many different career paths that people can get into, and it's not just limited to being a groom or being a trainer. Like, there's all kinds of different jobs, and it's important to showcase that and let people know that there are those career paths, and because that's how you get fresh faces in the industry, and fresh faces come with new ideas, and that's how you keep progressing forward.
Thank you. Landon, talking about fresh faces, that picture of you and Philly 47 up there, that's something else. Tell us about that day, and from the start of the day up until the race, what was happening there?
So start of the day, I woke right up in the morning, all excited. I went right out to the barn, started getting her ready, put bandages on, all that kind of stuff, got her gear ready. We loaded up, went to Panette, and I put her gear on. Well, Dad put her gear on, and we went out, warmed up, and from there forward, it was just all adrenaline. It was fun. Really
Did Dad
fun.
have any tips for you going behind the gate?
He kind of just said go for it, but yeah.
So, what was it like behind the gate for you, being behind a really nice mare in Philly 47, and they're about to say go? How you feeling?
I was a little nervous. It was the first time I ever been behind something like that before, and it just kind of all worked out in the end. And yeah, it was a good day.
And what about crossing the finish line? How was that?
That was a big relief of pressure.
There was a lot of people to meet you in the winner's circle.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. And the Rising Star as well. How important is that for you? You're obviously a young man in the industry. We want to keep you in the industry. How did that feel, getting that award?
It was a good day. getting that award was really good. It felt good. Yeah.
Excellent. Brandon, over to you. And just your first racehorse, tell us about that maybe, and those memories about that first one that you had.
Well, the first horse I ever had as a racehorse of my own was a trotter I bought off of Lee and Trevor Hicken for $200 that I had to borrow off my uncle because my summer job paycheck didn't come in then in time. And it was the most exciting summer of racing we've ever had. His name was Field at Muscle. He was 12 or 13 at the time. And if he didn't founder, I'm sure he'd be still in the front lawn with the dog. Both my family, my mom and I, we had a great time that summer. He was an old lame old racehorse, so it was really nice to have something. I remember when we first bought him. I didn't have a set of harness. I had an old wooden jog cart that Jimmy McDonald had done over. That was home. It still had face cloths on it, so it didn't get chafed on the truck on the way home. And I was walking the horse across across the center field after the races, and my mother met me at the paddock, and I had a smile on my face from ear to ear. And I looked at Mark Bradley. I said, "Mark, would you ever drive this horse?" Mark didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and he said, "Oh, I guess so, young fella. I've never really driven many trotters before." Well, from about the grandstand to the paddock, he was walking on 3 legs, and he was just an old lame old racehorse, and he was amazing. There was one day I was jogging. We didn't have Paul Morrison's here actually in the crowd, and I didn't have a trailer. All I had was the horse and the harness. I didn't have what to do. I just wanted to race him. So I put him in the entries, and then I realized, my God, I have to get him there. So I looked through, I said, who's in Eastern PEI right now that's going to be racing tomorrow? I called Paul, and Paul said, yeah, no problem, I'll pick him up. And we took him in. Paul, I think, Paul, you had one horse qualifying. I might have been in the 6th or 7th race, and he waited all night. And I had saved up enough money I thought was to give him gas. And I tried to pay Paul, and Paul said, no, every young fella needs a bit of a break. That horse ended up being 3rd. Warren McKinnon from Cape Breton drove him. He was second, I think, second to Scarlet Patty. And he was 3/5 off the track record that day. And he was at 13 years old. And he was amazing. He was, like I said, if he was still alive, he'd be in the front yard with the dog. I'm sure of it.
Excellent story. And Tara, for you, I know you and your grandfather's had a lot of horses over there. What about you for a first memory of a horse?
That'd probably be Warden Woody, the mare my grandfather bought me, probably 7 or 8 years ago now. She's I like to call her my heart horse. She's a lovely mare and great mom to her babies. And when I first got her, she was in foal. She had first foal for us at Poppy's barn. And from that night, we sat up all night with her, and that was probably when I really got hooked. It's
Great
pretty
story.
special.
I'll give it back to Nick.
Yeah, for sure. Landon, that's a record that nobody else has. You're sitting in the race bike, Mark Campbell hooks your head, and he's carrying the blanket and the halter. There's not many fellas can say that. That's something else. So, Zach, as we were just talking about, family is so important in this business. And all of you got involved in harness racing because of your family. But we're missing a generation, your peers, the people you went to school with. A lot of them don't even realize this business exists. What is the pathway for entry into the business for new people, as an active participant and maybe just as a customer? How can we tap into these people? What do you think, Zach?
Well, it's actually funny because I was having a conversation with my roommates the other night, and we were just talking about just the daily events, and I was talking about how I was out at the farm, and we were just talking about different horse names because they always say, that's a funny horse name, or that's a super cool horse name, and I forget which name it was, but they said I would love to have a horse named that, and I said, you know what, guys, maybe you'll buy a horse in October at the sale. I said, with the 5 of us, you can split up the expenses, and I'll train it for you, and it'll be a fairly cost-effective thing. And they said, you know what, that'd actually be kind of fun. So they're kind of considering it now, but I think a big thing with youth nowadays too is that it's got to be a social thing. And I know that like some other tracks in Ontario, like they might have a student night or something, and offer something special for young people to come in. You can have half-price beers or something like that, or just a discount for them, and it's something that they can come and they can enjoy, and instead of going out to the bars, they come and watch the races. And I know that they've come to watch me, and they've never seen it before. Like I had friends that I went to the Holland College with. I had one from Mexico and one was from South India. Never saw a horse up close before in their life. They didn't know that harness racing was a thing. And they came out one night and they watched it and they were just absolutely mesmerized. They came down to the barns afterwards and they were petting the horse and they thought it was just, the greatest thing ever. So I think it's definitely, to get new youth in it, you have to be able to kind of make it appealing to them and say, this is something that you can do with a big group of people and it'll be like a social event. And, I think that is kind of the direction that it has to go in to be able to get younger people through the doors, and not even necessarily saying they have to buy a horse, but even just to come and watch the races and bet on a couple horses, and then they go home and tell their friends, say, I was at the track the other night and it was a good time, you should come out and next week, and I think that's kind of where it's got to start.
Yeah, Landon, what about your friends in high school? How can we tap into these people?
For a good example, my buddy, we were young. We were around 10 years old, and we played on the same hockey team. And he was always wondering about horses and what they do and all that kind of stuff. So I said, well, come on to the track, and he got very involved in it and still is. He's always here helping every week, doing what he can. He was a little nervous at first. He's getting around there, he comes out to the farm all the time. And yeah, he's enjoying it. So
yeah, you think we need to get people really hands-on to get them more invested in the business, Landon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Brendan, what about you? How do you think we can tap into some younger people and get some new customers when they're late teens, early 20s?
Well, I'll use an example. Just recently, I finished my degree at UPEI, and one of my final courses was a public speaking course, and we had to do a presentation, and I wanted to do really well, so I figured I'd talk about something that they think I know something about. So I did it on harness racing, and the amount of applause, because I really didn't think that they would be as invested or really interested as they were. And there was probably 40 or 50 people in the room. And I asked them to raise their hands. I said, how many people have been to the races? All but 2 raised their hand. These are people from all around the world. The interest is there. The interest is there from people at the university age, the high school age, and harness racing has been around for so long that it's in most people's family. You see some of the McDonald's in the back. I went to school with Alex, and we were talking horse one day, and I was bewildered that he was talking about Grampy's Winner and things like that, and horses like that. And I said, where did you come? I haven't seen you around the track, right? And I think we're a generation outside of that. As a participant, as an owner, I think what Anthony McDonald does and what you're doing, Nick, and what I tried and failed miserably at was, fractional ownership. It's a good way for people to get involved and at a very low price, low cost. You can come around the barn and see the horses and see what what they're doing every day and things like that. But I remember as a participant on the track, I remember being a kid and Raymond White, and I think through the Industry Association, probably in 2005, 6, they had day camps where you were able to go and you were able to jog a horse and put the horse away and roll the bandages and put the bandages on. You were taught how to do it properly by somebody who was seasoned veteran, and by no means am I volunteering for anything like this. But it was a good way for people to get involved and be on the track. There's no better feeling in the world than being behind a racehorse on the racetrack jogging every day. There's no better feeling, and it's the best therapy in the world. If I'm having a long day, or you're wondering what's going on and your head's spinning, get out there. It's just you and 1,000-pound animal that isn't going to talk back to you. So, it is a really good therapy, and it's a really good way it's a great industry for my son, who's, he'll be a 5th-generation horse person in my family, and I can't wait for him to get involved. And, I think there is ways like, day camps, and I think in the States they do it, maybe in Ohio, and they're like, they train, like you get a license, you get a certification from it. And I think that's something that we probably could look into to get people involved hands-on. And fractional ownership, it's proven. Anthony has proven it. You're proving it. There's many have proved it. It's a good way to get people involved.
Yeah, and it's worth noting Mark Campbell's doing it too. And I think part of the answer to all of this is fractional ownership is part of the answer to this. And we need to get more stables doing it. And I think we're headed in that direction.
And totally. And for the longest time, like, we had, you think of, at the larger end, that would go to the sale every year and buy the high-end purchased yearlings. You have Ian Smith and Don and Peter and Gerard Morrissey and all of and those folks. That's fractional ownership. They had 4 people. We've been doing it for so long, and now it has that tagline, right? It has that appeal. We're just doing it, slicing the pie a few more times. It's a good way to, low risk, high reward, and if you own 1% or 100%, you have the exact same amount of fun.
Exactly. Now, I'll tell you who has a really good answer to number 2 is our friend down at the end, because I was talking to her about it the other night. How do you think we can get some young people involved?
They took the words right out of my mouth, Nick.
No, yours was better. Yours was better.
I can't even remember what I said after listening to all their good ideas. Which one was it? Refresh my memory.
You were thinking about having kind of it's been done before, but you had a new twist on it, kind of having a night at the races, maybe have some drivers here, have some track management, and just kind of go from start to finish. This is what a horse wears, this is what you do, this is how a race works, this is how you bet.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of learn the numbers. Like, I know myself, I don't know a whole lot about it, and I don't pretend to know much about it, but just even to learn how to read a scorecard or, learn more about the driver's points and the different classes and how to place a bet or, I think a lot of, there's interest there. I think it's just the knowledge part of it where we have to give a little bit extra.
Yeah, and just have people have an opportunity where we explain everything. Every question gets answered.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Zach, for you, we were talking a little bit before it started, grassroots and getting into some schools and maybe some young people again on that angle. How important is that to get to people early?
Oh, it's crucial to get that seed planted in them from an early age, because that's how I grew up. I just remember, I think the first horse that I ever remember being around was a horse named Appin Road, and he never made the races, but I remember just being able to go over to the barn and just seeing a horse, and I was probably only, I was really young. It's hardly, I don't remember anything else about the horse other than his name and just petting him, and but it's those early memories, and because youth are so impressionable, it's easy to be able to show them a horse, and then they think, oh, I love horses. It's good to be able to get the exposure for them at an early age, because then it gets them thinking about it. It gets them excited, and then they say, this could be something that I want to do whenever I'm older. And I think going to the schools, it's going to be good too, because some kids get bored with the curriculum, and they're not exactly thrilled with what's going on in school, and they say, well, I don't really know what I want to do. I'm not finding any career paths that I enjoy. I don't like math, I don't like science. Well, showing them horse racing, you can make money at it, if you're good enough, and it's been proven many times that this is a viable way to make money. And I think just showing kids at a young age that this is something that they can consider and find more information on, because there's so much more information being made public for people to learn about, and there's huge databases, and you could even just go down to a track that you're close to, and I'm sure most trainers will be happy to take you around and just show you the horses and say, this is what we do on a daily basis, and if you want to come back, then I know it's hard for a lot of people to get help too, and it's not that hard to train people to learn how to do this. So, I think just getting youth involved is going to be a big thing to help, keep it going forward.
You train horses as well. We were talking about that as well. How much of a thrill is that for you? Is that something you want to continue to do as you go along here?
Yeah, like I still remember the first time I ever jogged a horse. His name was Big Misunderstanding. It was at Ronnie Gass's farm, and I was sitting in my dad's lap, and I just couldn't believe it. I'm sitting behind this horse, and he's just doing whatever I want him to do. I'm steering this horse with my hands, and it was just such a great feeling. And like Brendan said, there's no better feeling than going out and jogging a horse to just clear your mind, and it is therapeutic. And I love training and I love driving because it's just the adrenaline thrill and just the speed of going with a horse, and it's something that it's bred into me now, and I caught the bug, and then I don't ever want to get out of the sport, and I'd like to be involved in any way that I can. It may not be driving, but even if I have a training, just have a racehorse to go with myself, it's a great feeling.
Excellent, thank you. Landon, do you remember the first horse you were around, and can you tell us about that?
I think my first horse I was ever around was either Dreamfair Van Dam or Eagle Jolt. I remember one day I was out in Charlottetown with Dreamfair Van Dam, and I think that was the first time I ever actually jogged a horse with Dad.
And did you have the bug right away? Did you feel like this is something I want to do?
Not quite then. I remember getting Eagle Jolt, and that's whenever I think I really clicked into it. Yeah.
What do you remember about Eagle Jolt? What was it about him? Was he a nice horse to jog?
Yeah, he was a really nice horse to jog, and he did anything you asked him to. He could pick up his feet in the barn. He could put bandages on him. He wouldn't move a muscle, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
What are your goals going forward here? I know you got the matinee win, but you're a young man. What would you like to accomplish in the industry if you could look ahead into the future?
Well, I got pretty big shoes to fill, but I would like one day to beat Dad. That'd be one of the biggest goals ever.
Excellent. Brendan, for you, you've had some nice mares and some nice overnight horses here. Talk a little bit about those horses for you, because they've been very good to you.
Yeah, we've really been really lucky. In 2000 it's not hard to tell I'm the oldest person here at the table, but in about 2011 we bought a mare. Her name's Canne Delinquent off of an on-gate sale, and she was in foal to Western Terror, and the foal that came, it was born, and it was obvious the minute it was born that there was something wrong, and there was something wrong, and we had vets come out and look, and we looked and we said, it needs to go to the ABC, and we got her to the ABC, and she hadn't passed her placenta, and there was things like that, and you could tell that there was really something drastic, and they told us after, when the foal was assessed, there's probably a good chance this foal is never going to come out of here. We'd be lucky if it makes the night, let alone ever race. She's about 50% chances this foal will ever live. Well, one day went to the next, and my mother being the bleeding heart, my father being the bleeding heart they said, you call Brendan, and when something, updates and things like that. Well, I was in grade 11. I thought money grew on trees. Apparently it doesn't. And they'd call and they say, this foal's kidneys are failing. She's livers are failing. There's fluid on her lungs, and there's this and there's that. And I'll just fix it. Go ahead. And then the bill came, and I was in big trouble that day. But anyway, 2 weeks later, we said that if the foal lives, you can name it. Well, the foal lived, and the foal was named Willow Warrior. And she was a pet, still is. You want to talk about a dog? She's going to be in the front yard with the dog. She'll always be there. But I was in high school at the time. We didn't really have the facility, so we sent her to Warren McKinnon in Cape Breton to be broke. We said, well, we'll try. We'll try to break her. They said she'll never make. There was, apparently there should have been damage, brain damage and different things like that. But she broke. She set their track record in North Sydney for going over the most amount of snowbanks. But she trained down. It wasn't pretty, but she made it. She made it at 2, and we'd raced her a few times. She paced in 59, and that was great. And coming back at 3, I kept her here, and in the McPhee stable of the old barn 9, just before the new barn was built. I trained her down, and with a lot of help from the McPhees and Brian and Amber and Brent and Richard at the time. I don't know. Richard was more the stories than anything, but we had a great time. And you know, she was started that year off in the maidens, and we had she won her second start in the maidens, and her third start and her fourth start. She won 15 races that year. And the end of the year, she beat the open mares here by the length of the stretch. She was something special, and only a select few people, and Nick being one of them, would really know how fast she really was, and how great she could have been. She, trained down as a 4-year-old, and she win the open mares by the length of the stretch again. And then, as they say, when fortune knocks and you turn it away, it sends its sister misfortune. A week later, she fell down and she never raced again. But she's produced some pretty nice, decent race horses. I have a filly right now that, it seems like it's coming full circle. Amber's uncle, Ricky, and Brian's brother, Ricky, has helped me greatly break her and break her in, and is going with her. I just got back here yesterday from the Dominican, and Ricky went with her all week, and he loves her. I love her. She's the daughter of her mother. And so I'm hoping, history does repeat itself. We had bred You Ain't Dolly, shadow play filly that we have, trained her down at 2. I went, broke student, had to go to work, so I took her to Cape Breton and went fishing. Wonder how that went. But I was able to take her over with me, and we trained her down at 2. And she was a real nice filly at 2, real nice filly. And she came back at 3 and was a real nice filly. And we were able to sell her for some pretty nice money. And then a year later, to the day, she landed back at the barn for a fraction of the price that we sold her for. So, and she's been really good to us since then. And there's been a few others that weren't quite as great, but the Fox will still be around, forever, right, Glenna? Yeah, exactly. You want to talk about being in the front yard, there'll be a horse in Stratford here for the next 30 years. So we're really lucky to have some nice horses come from the farm.
Excellent, thank you. And Tara, your future plans, what's up for you in the next couple of years?
Oh, well, besides being really tired, I don't know. I have 2 little girls at home, and 2 more on the way in the next 6 or so weeks. So, but in the horse world, I think right now we're just really trying to improve our brood mares and get some fresh blood on the island and some younger mares at the farm. A couple of them there are getting a little old, so we'll. That's kind of where we're at right now, just trying to improve what we have and keep moving forward.
And Tara, you're very actively involved in the breeding business. And there's been a lot of bright spots in PEI harness racing right now. The Atlanta Classic sale has posted record numbers the last 2 years. As Blaine McPherson said, there's more mares being bred, more foals being born, and there's a lot of money being pumped into the stakes program. How do you feel about the direction the breeding industry is going? And, Tara, what do you think we can do better?
For starters, I'd like to say thanks for the help that the association is giving the breeders for the mare incentive and the foal incentives, and it's great help for the island breeders to purchase their mares, find better mares. What was the second part of the question?
Is there anything you think we can do better?
I think something that would probably be an asset to it would be maybe opening a 4-year-old stake program. Maybe to, we have a lot of great horses around for their 2 and 3-year-old seasons, and then they're, there's nothing really else for them. So I think a 4-year-old stake would definitely be benefit to the industry.
Try and keep our stars around.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of good ones up country there, but it'd be nice to see some more for sure.
Brendan, what do you think about how everything's been going the last few years, and what do you think we can do better?
I think the breeding industry it's been a long time since it was as strong as it is right now. There's always room for improvement. I think, to echo Tara's point, a 4-year-old and 5-year-old series is a really good way of, especially if you keep it on the female side of things, it's a good way to keep your really good brood mares around. Some of the breed on PEI right now is as good as you're going to find anywhere. I think, again, to echo Tara, the support that the breeders are finally getting, I will say from the industry has been long overdue, and I think it's great. It's, you know, it is really good to have that. I think for too long, the breeder went a little unnoticed.
Yeah, it kind of puts the backbone back in the business. doesn't it, Brendan?
Exactly. Like, so if, you know, the breeder doesn't breed horses, we don't have an industry.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Zach, you guys have brood mares at home. You know, what do you think about the direction things are going, and do you think there's anything we can do better?
Yeah, you know, my father's always had brood mares around his farm, and he's bred a lot of yearlings, and you know, a lot of ones that didn't make it, and you know, his most notable one was Vicky Every Day. You saw on the screen there. One was as a 3-year-old, and she was actually the first 2-year-old that he ever won a stake race with. The first 2-year-old he ever raced at that. And you know, it was in Atlantic Sires in Inverness, and that was really big for him. So
yeah, there's a lot of good things happening, aren't
yeah, exactly. And I think it's great to be able to you know, just look at the numbers of the brood mares, and you know, working at the office with Julie, it's great to see the numbers of how many people are registering foals every year, and you know, the number just keeps increasing, and there's so many people that have been taking advantage of the broodmare incentive, the broodmare purchase program that we've been offering, and you know, that's a big thing to be able to get new people into the sport too, is you know, seeing that there is help to get broodmares here, and you know, the assistance that the industry has been giving them, it helps people that may not have been able to necessarily afford one before. It gives them the help to be able to buy, say, like a you know, a higher caliber broodmare than what they could have afforded without that help. And even, I mean, the amount of stallions that we have right now, like Muscle Through It just got back at Windermere, and I saw that you guys are standing Southwind Arturo this year too. So on the trotting side of things, you know, that's starting to become in better shape. And I know there was a couple trot mares that were purchased through the broodmare incentive program. I know you purchased one this year yourself. So it's exciting to see how that is going to start progressing, because I know the trot breed was kind of in trouble there for a little while, and there was a lack of stallions and a lack of mares too. And so it's pretty interesting to see just over the past couple of years how it's progressed, and I think that we're in a pretty good spot now as an industry as a whole, and we understand that, you know, PEI has been producing quality racehorses, and they've shown that whenever they go to the big stage, and it's a testament of what PEI is capable of doing.
Yeah, we have some leadership at the top levels that's really put some legs back in the trot business, no question. So my last question, we'll get some questions from the crowd here in a second. My last question is for our youngest person here, who, you know, he kind of came in at the 11th hour, pinch hitting to replace Brett. Brett had to be at hockey tonight. You'd sooner be here than playing hockey, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't believe you, but that's okay. You know, I think kind of the point of this whole panel is the question I'm going to ask you right here. How can we make the business more appealing to young people? What can we do?
I think I'd like to see like a couple more matinee races definitely in Charlottetown, because there's a lot more people come to Charlottetown than they would to go to Panett or somewhere like, or Alberton or somewhere like that. So I think a lot of young people will probably recognize more people whenever they see young people out on the track here.
Yeah, and expansion. The matinee program is a very important part of youth participation, isn't it, Landon?
Yes, absolutely.
For sure. Well, thank you for your time, guys. Do we have any questions from the audience? Okay, well, let's get a round of applause for this crew. Thank you very much. Mr. McPhee, you're up. And we'll get the ladies down here. Alexis, Jen, Amber, Michelle. Yeah.
Excellent. That was good. That was really good. Hey, how are you? Grab a seat. We'll get you some water. Great. That's nice. Remember the mic's on, okay? Stand those down the line. Sure. Yeah.
Good honor. You're not first, you're last. Yeah, Ricky Bobby. It's yet, not first, you're last. Yep, shake and bake. Second place is the first place loser. You're all the same. I get home. Yep.
Well, thanks. That was a super panel of a lot of great ideas, and great to hear the history of all those young guys, and Tara as well. And yeah, Tara looks like she's going to get real busy. So hope that goes well with you, Tara. And no, it's super great. And the thing I get out of it is the connection to the horse that they all have, and how it's the horse that we're all connected to. So next panel, we got a great group of ladies here, and they're gonna tell us about how they're succeeding in the sport we love. So carry on, Cam.
Our second panel tonight, Succeeding in Harness Racing, features 4 talented individuals in the harness racing industry on Prince Edward Island. Amber Campbell, Jennifer Doyle, Michelle Myers, and Alexis Gass are involved in all aspects of the sport, owning, driving, and training their horses. 2022 was a banner year for all.
Along for the ride, clear by 3. Birch Legacy is taking over second. Ocean View Cicero third. On the wire next in the PEI Colt Stakes. Along for the ride. Every call the winning one for Amber Campbell. Amber Campbell. Put her on top at every call, winning in 202-2. Along for the ride, captures the division of the PEI Colt Stakes. Headed on home, Sailor Blue the leader. Charlotte Kay on the outside. Jesse, Jess, or Jessica gobbling up ground in the passing lane. It is Jesse, Jess, or Jessica for Dowling. Jesse, Jess, or Jessica arrives at the 7th race winner's circle. Home by Jennifer Doyle and Danny Bird of Vernon Bridge. Jennifer Doyle does the training. David Dowling along for the winning ride. Magical Cowgirl stole it in the second quarter. Rock the Baby coming with her. Maggie's Delight up the inside. Heap in the stretch. Maggie's Delight will upset them for Corey McPherson. Maggie's Delight moving into the 12th race winner's circle. Owned by Michelle Myers and Roger McDonald of Cardigan. Michelle does the training. Corey McPherson is in the driver's seat for the win. Dusty Lane Zendaya turning home. Dueling Banjos coming to the outside for the stretch drive. Elm Grove Misty closing up in the passing lane. Deep in the stretch. Coming to the wire next. Dusty Lane Zendaya. Elm Grove Misty. Wow, we're going to need a win picture. Dusty Lane Zendaya arriving at the 4th race winner's circle. Owned and trained by Alexis Gass of Cornwall. Corey McPherson picks up the winning drive.
Please welcome Amber Campbell, Jennifer Doyle, Michelle Myers, and Alexis Gass to the 2023 Island Horse Breeders Conference. Yes, again, thank you, and welcome to the ladies tonight on the panel. We're going to start at the far end, and we'll talk to Michelle first. Michelle, can you tell us how you got involved in the business of harness racing?
You were supposed to start at the other end. We fought over who had to go first, you know. I always had horses growing up, but then when I met Norman, he had race horses. I had riding horses, totally different. But the horse part was always the same, so I just needed to learn the game. And it took me years to figure it out, and I still haven't figured it out, but I enjoy it every day. So until I got it mastered, I guess we'll keep trying.
Amber, I know your story, but tell everybody else is here.
We actually planned it that Michelle would speak first. Anyway, she talks more than the rest of us, I'm not going to lie. I'm a 4th generation horse person. As you know, my family's well in the game. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my dad, my brother Brody drives, and myself. We also had my mom's side involved for a little while too. My grandfather, he had bought a horse back when I was 6 years old by the name of Be Consistent. He's actually the first horse I ended up owning. He raced his 2 and 3 for my dad, and he wasn't very good. So I think my grandfather ended up selling him to me for $1. He's the first horse I ever jogged. The first day of the hospital, I was in my dad's blacksmith shop. So it's kind of went from there. I don't miss many days. And I'm like Michelle, I haven't mastered it yet either, so I'm going to be around for a while too.
That's a good thing. And Jen, how about you? Can you tell us how you got started?
Yeah, so probably my first memory would be my grandmother's boyfriend by the name of Harry Matthews. He had a brother, Roy Matthews, who had racehorses here. Some of you might remember, but I'm talking like 35 years ago. But I do remember coming to the track and watching the horses then and going out to Roy's farm and just loving the horses. After that, my Uncle Barry, he had a big interest in harness racing and ended up taking home a mare to the family farm by the name of Sonica Savannah. I think she came from Von Doyle's barn at the time. And I loved horses, so I thought this was great. We bought a harness, a jog cart, and I was probably 8 or 9, and I remember coming home after school, getting off the bus, going to the barn, putting the harness on her, no idea what I was doing. I don't even know where the adults were at this time, but, putting the jog cart on her and just going. And we'd be just going through fields, like long grass, no idea what I was doing, but that's how I learned, I learned on her, and my uncle ended up breeding her. We had a couple foals out of her, so I got to see that aspect of it, which they eventually came in. I think Vaughn had those as well, so I remember coming to the stake races. I remember being in Summerside Lobster Carnival Week just as a kid and watching those. And then there was a bit of a gap, and I started working at the Charlottetown Vet Clinic in 2006. And I started to meet some of the people in the industry. That's actually where I met my ex-husband, and he had a couple race horses. So I got involved with the horses with him, and we ended up growing a decent-sized stable, and I got my trainer's license then, which eventually led me to have my own stable now.
Excellent. And Alexis, again, give us your start in the industry. I know you come from a big harness racing family as well.
Yeah, I grew up in a pretty big horse community, and my family has been in it. I'm 4th generation, and I got my first horse when I was 9 years old. His name is Wealth of Nations. I learned the ropes with him and just kind of the grooming aspect of it. And then a couple years later, me and my aunt, she put me down on a mare, Dusty Lanes and Day, as we saw the replay, and she gave us a lot of thrills as a racehorse, and I loved watching her, and she really made me fall in love with the game. And then later on, we ended up breeding her, and more recently, I've gotten into the breeding side of it, and she has 2 foals now, and I'm kind of involved with all aspects of harness racing.
Great, thank you. Cam.
Alexis, to stay with you, to date, what is your career highlight?
That's tough. I've had many highlights as a groom and owner and trainer and breeder, but I would say this year, my first training win, that was something that was on my bucket list for a while. And it was with a homebred, Dusty Lane Zambuca. It was her first start back, and first time Kenny Murphy. Now, I don't usually have any doubt in Kenny whenever he's driving for me. I usually tell him to do whatever he can, but everyone wants to start off their career 1 for 1, and we were in the 5th race, and he ended up winning the previous 4 races in Summerside, and that kind of got my superstition a little worried there. And I didn't tell him that it was my first start as a trainer. I just said, get her around twice and get her back to the barn to me. Well, he did do that, but I ended up meeting him back in the winner's circle, and that was just an awesome feeling. I didn't even believe it at first. I don't think anyone else really did either, because they're like, oh, I thought you already had your trainers. I thought, you're already down. But, yeah, that was probably one of my biggest highlights, and probably will be.
Definitely a big day.
Yeah.
How about you, Jen?
There's probably been a couple highlights. You have some good nights. There was one night this past summer that I had 6 horses in to go, and they were all back to back, and my help kind of fell short that night, and I was stuck by myself, so I called a couple of my girlfriends to come in, and between the 4 of us, we ended up winning 4 of those races. But a different side of it, probably my biggest career highlight, I'm going to have to say, is watching young Damien McClellan become a driver. Damien worked with me last year and helped me train horses, and then he decided he was going to go for his driver's license. So to watch him, use all my horses qualifying and, winning his first qualifier with Elm Grove Mistress. Then he did his rated mile with Elm Grove Mistress. And then to see him go out, his first parimutuel start, he drove Elm Grove Mistress, and he won that race. And I was so proud of him. I was so proud of Elm Grove Mistress. I don't think I've ever been so excited going back to the winner's circle. I'm just excited for him. So that was definitely a highlight of mine, watching him do that and become a driver.
You guys definitely set him up for success. Now, hats off to you guys. Amber, how about you?
I'd have to say I probably have more than one highlight too. I remember my first lifetime win, and breaking into a male sport, your first lifetime win as a female was quite something. I remember driving her RDB's Precious Gem. She got in off the also eligible list, and the gentleman that owned her wasn't here on the island, so he asked me to drive her. I remember moving out of the 3-hole with no horse and thinking to myself, this is the worst drive in the world. She won in 2-3, and when I get back to the winner's circle, I thought it was the best drive in the world. She'd been my first one. Another career highlight would be likely this summer, along for the ride, trotting filly that my dad has brought along since a yearling. She gave me my 100th win. She gave me both two stake race wins this year, PEI Colt Stakes being one, the Lady Slipper being the other. I'm very glad that my dad gave me that shot with her, and I knew this year I was getting close to 100. And like I say, again, being female in the sport, that means a lot more to me than 100 wins means to a male. But I had let my dad know a couple of weeks before that we're chomping close to 100, and he had the filly good that night, and he had her good all summer long, and she came up big all summer, and she gave me 2 or 3 highlights, and my biggest highlight is coming back to the winner's circle with both my little girls there ready for a fist bump every night too. So.
Yeah, that she turned into a nice filly. It goes to show that patience is definitely a virtue. How about you, Michelle?
I'm going to have to say Maggie's Delight. She was a filly that Norman bought without my permission. Norman and Roger went one day, which is our partner in crime, Roger McDonald, and they went while I was at work. We came home empty-handed that day from the sale. And we were all kind of disappointed, but at the same time I was like, oh God, it's one less thing we have to do. But they went and picked up this little tiny filly, and I mean petite. Like, her legs are probably smaller than my forearms now, and she's 5. They took her home, and Norman ended up getting hurt that year. And I had to do everything myself. She was one that I jogged from start to finish, trained her down from point A to point B, never had to ask anybody to help me train her. I just tagged along when I came to town. Whoever was there, I tagged along, and we followed around. So her first stake start was a B stake in Summerside, and she won it in 2-6, half in 6, back half in a minute flat. And Mark Hamill come up and goes, I thought we were flying. I said, yeah, her little legs can boogie, and you think she's very distinct. We got fined too for a slow half, but Mark goes, I'm sorry, I thought we were going faster than we were. That was definitely like a career highlight for me, to go from point A to point B. I definitely had pointers, but to sit in the bike and the cart all by myself was definitely a very big start for me.
That little mare definitely has heart. Thanks, Michelle.
Alexis, all you guys up here on the panel tonight have done very, very well. And you being a female in the sport, how important is it to get more females involved? And because you've had a lot of success in different areas of the sport.
Well, it's very important to have females because we can give new voices, new opinions, and new ideas to the sport. As we've seen over the past couple of years, we've been climbing up the class ranks with everything. It just kind of also shows the public that it's not a male's game, that the females can do exactly what the boys do, and we can do it equally as well. And it just kind of shows that we're all about equality here and not just the men doing it all.
Jen, you've done very well in the training ranks. Would you say the same, that we need to get some more females involved as well?
Yeah, it would be nice. I mean, it definitely it's a difficult thing to try and get females into the sport. I mean, they have to have the passion for the horses and want to be involved. But then I think the biggest thing is to try and get somebody to give these females a chance and to let them be hands-on. And sometimes that can be maybe a bit of a barricade, is to try find somebody that is willing to let them, be hands-on it and to learn. You know, like you look at Melissa McRae has been with me all summer, and she definitely has the passion. She wants, no doubt, she will be a trainer someday. But it's to give her that opportunity to be hands-on with them and to teach her, and to do that. And that's maybe a bit of a barricade there, is to give them the opportunity.
Amber, we see lots of females in the winner's circle, working down in the paddock, up in the winner's circle. Again, there's lots of women, talented women in this industry.
Yeah, there is, Peter. There are very many talented females, and it goes right from a very young age to an old age. I myself would love to see more females. I've been away from here. I've been to Florida. I raced in Florida against some lady drivers down there. I've been to Toronto. I drove against some lady drivers up there. They do well for themselves. When you go away from here, you see a lot of the grooms away from here are female as well. And the problem that I have is that the female doesn't usually get as much recognition. They stay in the barn. But again, when you look around the sport and you see that it's a male-dominated situation, it can be intimidating. And I wonder sometimes, if that's not the reason we don't see any more females stepping up. You come in the barn, you fall in love with the horses. The males are down as trainers, the males are driving. Where do we go next? And also the part of falling in love with the horses, like it's a lot harder for a female to turn a horse away, like, oh, we got big money coming. Yeah, but we got a horse in the barn that we really like. I've got 2 little girls at home that, they're the deciding factors a lot of the times, whether the horse leaves or not. We've got 2 old fellas out at Dad's place now, and they keep telling me the third one's going to go there too. But but I'm like Jen. It's hard to find to get females in here. I think the way you got to get in, you either got to be born in or you got to marry in. And other than that, it's hard to bring them here because it is such a hard sport to be hands-on for a female if you're not brought up right in the business. There's no introduction for women to be here.
Michelle, you're a trainer and a a trainer and an owner as well. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm with Amber. You're either married into it or you're born into it, and I'm married into it. And I gotta tell you, most of my fights with my husband are over 4-legged creatures. He taught me the business, but he does things differently than I do. But it's like Amber said too. We love what we do. We fall in love with the animals, and as a female, you want to keep them. And in this business, it's tough love. It's a hard business because plenty of times you can come to the track and you might come home with an empty trailer, whether it be misfortune on the track or it's claimed and it's gone. And I feel that is the hard part to get a female is when we get involved, we're all in. And then when the vote comes down to it, whether it's time for the horse to quit, retire, or move on to greener pastures, us females don't want to let them go. So it's tough love, and I just feel, not that men are cold-hearted, but we as women, I know that I'm always going, well, one more time, one more shot. Well, maybe next time we'll try something else. And when there's 4 men looking at you going, nope, it's time to quit, it's hard. So I don't know how you teach women to not fall in love so hard, but to get involved, because it's a great sport. It's very enjoyable, it's very rewarding, but it's not for the faint of heart, that's for darn sure.
You're right there, Michelle. A little compassion for the animal goes a long way. Michelle, sticking with you, tell us about your all-time favorite horse, or as you gals call it, your hard horse.
I'm still gonna have to go to old Meg. It's funny because Maggie, honest to God, she was probably at 600 pounds when we got her, and she was full 600 pounds. She is ignorant. She's grindy. She did everything her own way. She was the type that if you taught her once, she was going to remember it, but you could never let her get away with her own little antics because you were done. We used to joke and call her Itty Bitty Maggie, because Norma would always come home and be like, oh my God, my arms are sore from Maggie. Oh, it's only Itty Bitty Maggie. But the first time Corey McPherson drove her, he said to me, he goes, Roger, you're going to have to get me a gym membership, he said, because I can't keep up to Michelle and Itty Bitty Maggie. But she's made you know, she got 6 stake wins in her 2-year-old career. She grounded out through Mystifying and Tobin's Brownie as a 3-year-old. The adjustment between 3 and 4 was tougher, but I found at the end of this year, in her own time, she's probably 1,000 pounds, maybe now, maybe 950, I don't know, but she still pulled 950 pounds behind that gate. But I feel like she's finally coming into her own, and again, she's one of those ones that she ain't going anywhere.
Definitely good to hear. Definitely good to hear. How about you, Amber?
I'd have to say I have a couple. The first horse that I really would have fell in love with would have been Be Consistent as a 6-year-old. You know, he was one of those horses that we had in the barn. It was the first horse I jogged. I got to do anything I wanted with him. He was one of those horses that was never ever going to leave. He gets sold and we'll buy him back. Well, he's never been back. So along the lines then, I went to Florida and I worked for Mike McDonald, and I got to take care of a great little horse by the name of Thunder Bay. He was as tough as nails. He was a lame old horse. But week in and week out, he gave you everything he had, and he showed you the true grit of a racehorse. On the driving side of things, you know, I take a look at horses like Adkins Hanover. He's one that I've spent his entire career here with, and I get the pleasure to drive him every week now. But my all-time favorite, week in and week out, would probably have to be a little horse that my dad and I bought at a Newfoundland, Salmon Storm. He got me in my first driving championship back in 2018. I think we had 10 wins with him that year. We ended up beating the top class with him early December of that year as well. And, you know, for me to win the top class drive and it be with a horse that my dad and myself owned together, and it happened to be right on Brent's mother's birthday too. So he's out in the country now. He retired. We tried to race him the next year, and he didn't stay sound. So he went back out to Dad's farm, and as long as my girls want him around, he's got a home for life. So yeah, he'd be the all-time favorite.
He's definitely a gritty little guy.
Yeah.
How about you, Jen?
That's a tough one. I've had a lot of favorites. I actually looked at my file at work the other day. It keeps track of the amount of horses you've had. And in the last 13 years, I've had 96 horses that I've owned and raced myself. So to choose one out of those 96, I'm actually going to say Winter Blast. He's just such a fan favorite. Everybody loves Winter Blast. He's getting older now, but he definitely has a home for life. We've had him. He's just been so consistent for us. And not only that, just to see him, like, kids love him. Kids that have never been around horses, they just flock to him. And he just reminds me of Eeyore off Winnie the Pooh. Like, he's just puts his head down. You know, you see them picking his feet up, putting bandages on. He has so much patience. And it just seems like people I've met that barely know anything about harness racing, but they know who Winter Blast is. I had one little girl come down to the paddock this year during the races, and she was probably 6. I've never seen her before. I didn't know who she was, but she had a little bristle board and had Winter Blast's name on it. She came to watch him. I've had elderly ladies taking pictures of him coming off the trailer down in the yard that, oh, look, that's Winter Blast. Like, everybody just loves him, and he's so patient. You know, we dress him up for Halloween as a unicorn. We paint him for Harness the Hope. He just gets disgusted with me, but everybody just loves him, so he's definitely one of the faves.
The Greys definitely stick out, don't they? How about you, Alexis?
That's a tough one. I've been around a lot of great horses, the ones that I've owned, ones my grandfather owned, and other people's as well. But I'm going to have to go with the homebred, Dusty Lane Zendaya. She was one of the last ones out of my aunt's mare, the boss's daughter. And I remember the night that she was born, she had this big white face, and my grandfather, he hates white Americans on horses, and I love the white. So anyways, she didn't race as a 2-year-old, and then she came and then qualified in the winter, and she had a pretty good year. And then we sent her up to Ontario, and I remember watching her whenever my aunt was in the hospital, and she gave us a lot of thrills. I absolutely loved watching her. And then in June, she had a 3-year-old stake race up in Summerside, and my grandfather drove her. And that's still one of my favorite races. I absolutely loved watching it because my grandfather just sat there the whole time. And my grandmother was there in the winner's circle with us as well. And she's like my first brood mare, and she gave us a couple foals. And then she came back to race, which was my absolute favorite thing ever because I always wanted to have her race again. And she's up there in age, but she gave us a really good year this year. And yeah,
I think we all remember that night in Summerside for sure.
Michelle, we're going to ask you, you talked about Maggie's Delight, but there's another horse that you have that's a really consistent mare, and that's Hamac Blaze. Tell us a little bit about her and how you got her and what she's like.
We called, Earl Watts actually had another mare, a 3-year-old filly, coming to the end of her career, and he had her listed on the sale board. So we called Earl about this other filly, and he said, no, I think she's sold, but I have another one if you'd like to come look at her. So again, Norman and I and Roger, we all went up. And Blaze, I'm sure you guys have noticed she's huge. But when we went to look at her as a 3-year-old, she wasn't very big. Nothing fancy either. Her breeding was good, but Earl thought that she would fit right in with Norman and I, so we said, okay. So Roger paid for her, and we raced her. She was already in to go, actually, so we raced her that Sunday, and she was second. And she had one stake race left, and it was Lady Slipper Grassroots for her 3-year-old career. So again, we put her back in. We went the very next Sunday, and Corey drove her again. Corey was second the first start, and the very next Sunday we put her in the Lady Slipper, and she win it. She had herself paid for in 2 starts. So obviously we didn't pay a whole lot for her, but she, but ever since, like, in her 4-year-old career, she win 8 for us. Then in her 5-year-old career, she win 8 again. And this year we decided that December 31st, we were done. So she's officially retired, but she's, again, I win again, and she's staying at my house. And we're going to breed her once, I don't know if Norman and Roger have actually agreed to this, but we're going to breed her in spring. I always win.
Amber, it was a big season for you in the driving category. As you mentioned previously, you secured your 100th win and your first stakes win in August and September, respectively, with Along for the Ride, a trainee of your father's. Tell us about this trot filly, as she looks like she'd be a real handful to drive.
Actually, she's not really that bad. She's a nice filly. She's green. Dad had raced her. I don't know. I think he had 6 starts with her last year, and she ended up winning late last year in the fall. But she's a filly. When she came to the barn, we took a look at her, and all 4 feet go in different directions. She's not a filly you'd ever think would make the races. She's big ears. She's got a big head, and right down to it, I don't like the word, but we call her dumb. She's big and awkward, but when she gets to the track, she's a real nice filly. And this year, my dad had some health issues, and we had a couple of trotters in the barn. The other trotter actually has gone back to Ontario. So when it came time to make the call, Brody got to drive him, and I got to drive this filly. And I had trained her down last year as a 2-year-old, and I drove her a couple of starts in Summerside last year as well. And this year, like I say, with Dad being out on the sidelines, I got the call on her, and we kind of learned together. The first couple of starts, she raced really well, and then we drew the rail. And Dad said to me that night, listen, Amber, she's going to make a break tonight, and it doesn't matter what you do. No, she won't, Dad. I know this filly. She's all right. Yeah, well, she made a break. So that's all right. Back to the barn I come, and he smiled, and he said, I told you, and it is what it is. So the next week, she draws the rail. I said, this is great. And he goes, no, it's no big deal. She'll stay trotting tonight. You know her, and she knows the rail. You'll be all right. She ended up drawing 3 more rails, and she ended up getting away great. But the further along in her career so far, the better she's become. She's learned to be a racehorse. On the front, she takes a breather, and she relaxes really well, and she waits for a horse to come. And Corey will know himself. Come first up on her, and you think she's all done. She's just getting started. She doesn't know the end of her mile, and I've drove her good and I've drove her bad. And at the end of the day, she usually comes out that she makes a bad drive look good. She made a couple of breaks late in the year, never her fault. At either in the barn or on my fault that the mistakes were made. We're hoping that she has a real good season next year. I think she's going to make a real nice trot mare next year.
Yeah, definitely. She has quite a foundation behind her.
Jen, you mentioned you had 96 horses over the last few years. How do you go about selecting your horses when you're looking to bring horses to race on Prince Edward Island?
I don't know if there's a real selection process besides keeping an eye out on the for sale boards and whatnot. Definitely a breed that catches my eye is the sports raiders. I know they're not everybody's favorite, but I seem to get along with them. As far as picking them out, I think now I'm trying to pick them out based on the classes that they fit and based on the horses that I have already, so they don't, end up racing against each other. And, it definitely helps. You have some friends in Ontario and around that you can call and ask questions, find out history, trainers that have had them before, different health issues. But I think mainly I'm at the point to try pick horses out based on the classes that they fit here in Charlottetown.
Alexis, as you talked about before, being around the barn all the time. Your family is an Island harness racing industry institution in Dusty Lane Farms. Can you tell us about the role that has played in your upbringing?
It's had a pretty big impact. I don't really know where I'd be without the horses. I've had a lot of life lessons, the good and the bad, be taught with this. I definitely want to keep the farm going and that, and I think it's kind of carved my future career. I'm currently in pre-vet and planning on becoming a veterinarian as well, and then hopefully we can help our athletes and make the game better.
Good for you.
Michelle, back to you. What's your favorite aspect of the sport? What got you into it, but what keeps you going? What do you love most about the game?
Definitely the adrenaline. Like, I'm the type of person that goes all day, every day. I mean, I work 2 full-time jobs, 2 kids, 3 kids, barn full of horses, cows. Why would you ever go in the house and put your feet up and watch TV? But it's very rewarding when you can take something from nothing and learn from it, and they learn from you, and you become the best of friends. Besides your own children, I don't know who you could do that with any better than an animal. And especially if you have a bad day, even in the house, and the kids are driving you crazy, you can go to the barn and talk to your 4-legged kids who don't talk back. So, yeah, they give you everything. They listen to everything you have to say, and they love you for all that you do. So horses are the best medicine that you can find. So,
Amber, same question for you. I know you absolutely love the game. What is it for you that just keeps you going?
The horse, Peter, and my family. As a family, we don't spend an overabundance of time together, but in the barn we do. There's a lot of days a week I don't see my brother, but on race day, I see my brother, I see my dad. Dad and I are in contact pretty well every day, but it keeps us. I come in the barn at night or at lunchtime during the day, and it keeps us together. And the cheering squad and the support system that we have that come from the McPhee family keeps it going. I love to win races too, but that doesn't always happen, so that's not the reason I'm here. But yeah, the animal, the love of the animal, and bringing my girls up. Yeah. They love to be around. They're old enough now that they're in the paddock on race day. They're out at my dad's. They help with the stalls. They help in the barn. They're on the horse's back. They're under their belly. They're everywhere. And I just hope the game stays around long enough that this group of women right here shows them that at the end of the day, if this is what they want to do, that they've got a place here too. So yeah, so my family, the support from my family and the animal definitely keeps me going.
Thank you, Jen. And same question for you. What is it that keeps you involved in loving the game so much?
I'm going to agree with Michelle, too. Some days you wonder, what am I doing? Like I said, you work all day. I have 4 kids. It's just go, go, go. You don't even know what it's like to sit down because you get home from work, you feed the kids, then you go out to the barn when the kids are in bed and you work. But it's the adrenaline and the competitive side of it, and seeing the horses do well under your care, and it's just the feeling, I guess, you get from it.
Alexis, you're a little bit on the younger side, but you grow up, obviously, again, at the Gas Farm. For you, you've got more on the breeding side as well. Is that sort of where you're leaning towards as far as your future?
Yeah, I was always drawn towards the foals. Well, how could a little girl not love all the babies running around? But I just like whenever you get the foal on the ground and then it's up sucking, mare's doing well, and then a year later it sells at the sale, you get a good price for it, everyone's happy, and then in the spot, or in the summer the horse does well in the track and stuff, and it's just a great feeling saying that, well, we brought this one into the world and hopefully we can do that with the rest. Right now my future plan is to focus more on the breeding at Dusty Lane and bring more Dusty Lane horses to the game and hopefully better the industry here.
Michelle, we'll go back to you. Week in, week out, your name is in the program, listed as trainer on some very competitive horses. What has it ever crossed your mind to drive?
Cam, are you crazy? I can handle a horse. 1,200 pounds, I got it. But I can't keep my mouth shut, so no. Not a chance.
I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt here. Anyway.
Amber, you were so close at the driving championship. Take us through that day, because you were rocking that day early, and it seemed like everybody, nothing against Corey, because we all like Corey.
No, we don't. No, we don't like him at all.
But that to me was a dream day for you. Everything just seemed to be going well, and you were driving great.
It was actually a fantastic day. When the program came out, or the list came out, I had a look at the drives that I had, and everything that I drew was competitive. There was a couple of horses that drew outside that I knew were going to need some kind of a trip, but the day itself went well. I came into the day, pretty happy to be there to begin with, and I remember going to the paddock, and I'd been watching Ma Rebelle race the last couple of weeks, and she's been getting pretty rolly. So I'd asked Ashley, I said, anything I need to know? And she said, yeah, when she gets rolly, just keep tapping on her. She'll keep going. I promise she won't run. At least not till after the wire was over. I turned for home, and she got real rolly, and I was thinking, oh, good God, this isn't going to be good. If I'm the first person that makes this mare run since she come here. But she raced super. She finished up strong. And then, I come right back out again and win with a mare of Kenny Arsenault's got a fantastic trip behind her stablemate, Mike McGuigan, was driving her, and we ended up getting up the passing lane. The old Melanie's Magic, I thought he had a pretty good shot when I looked at the program. Going into the last, I didn't know how close we were. I didn't know point-wise. I really hadn't kept tally. I just kept getting on and getting off, because as long as I kept focusing on putting the horses where they needed to be that day, they seemed to be carrying me through the race. So going into the last race, actually, I was coming out of the paddock, and Jill said, congratulated me. Congratulations, he said. I said, for what? He said, I think you've got it sewed up. I said, we get back in the yin-yang. I'm turning for home. And I said, you got to be fifth, pal. Come on. We're sitting in the two-hole. No, we didn't get there. Could I be, and I come up, and Corey had beat me by a point. But again, somebody said to me, well, if he paced in 58 and he got home in 30 seconds, and he does that every week. So, it was just the group of horses. He was up in class. Was I disappointed? Yes. Corey? Yeah, you owe me a big one some night, okay? But yeah, it was a great day, and it probably actually should have been one of my career highs that I mentioned earlier, because I've never won 3 races in a day. And I did that day, and like I said, it just seemed like with that mind frame, everything I jumped on got themselves, or I got them, whatever it was, in position, and they all gave me everything they had. So yeah, it was a fantastic day.
Yes.
And I also got to rub it into my brother.
Yes.
As he sat home and watched it on the computer.
I'm sure he took it very well.
Yeah, he did. Very well he did, Cam.
Yeah, I know he took it very well. Jen, going over to you, every race fan knows you have a very big barn of horses. Who helps you on the day-to-day get it all done?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Like I said, I do work, so I do have to depend on a lot of people day in and day out to help out in the barn. It does vary year to year who I have help out. I do have David Myers is there. He's been a staple there for a few years now. He keeps Silver Hill Buddy there. So he helps out in the barn. He does some jogging. The last little bit I've had Sandy and Wade Myers have been there helping out, and they've been a great help, super reliable. And that counts for a lot, having people that you can rely on getting the work done when you're not there. This summer, Melissa McRae had worked for me this summer and did a great job. Like I said, it varies all the time who's there day to day, but it all gets done.
Definitely busy in Earnscliffe, yep.
So we'll do one more round here with the ladies, and then we'll open it up to the floor if you have any questions. But going forward, Alexis, so what are your plans in the industry? I know you touched on it a little bit. What are you looking forward to down the road?
Well, first goal is become a large animal vet, and then I'd like to open my own practice. But I do definitely have some big goals for the farm. I want to keep it going. I want to keep it going strong. We're up horses right now, and I would like to keep that going. Again, I would like to switch more to the breeding side. I would like to have a couple of race horses here and there and keep going to the track and continue training in that, but I definitely want to focus more on the mares and bring more to the game.
Excellent. We need you. Thanks for being in the industry. Jen, what about you? What are your plans ahead?
Plans ahead. I don't know. I guess just kind of I have built a stable, and trying to do more quality over quantity was a big thing last year. And just have some competitive horses and have a good year, maybe win some bigger races this year.
You did well last year. Amber, for you, what are you looking forward to next year and beyond?
I'm looking forward to getting to drive that trot filly of my dad's again next year and hopefully taking on the open trot mares with her. I'm going to keep driving, and I look forward every day to my girls coming in. They come in, and Better Than Cash is a horse that we bought a couple of years ago after Dad and I had gotten rid of the trotters, and Dad's kind of getting out on the owner's side. And he's a great little horse to have around, and they help jog, and they come in the evenings, and they look forward to putting him away and stuff like that. So we're going to stay involved that way. The numbers stay small. Dad's getting down, and the horse is little too. He keeps a couple around, so we all enjoy kind of going up and helping him. And I'm going to keep one around to drive all the time. And old Adkins Hanover's getting to the last part of his years, so he turned 14 this year. So we're going to try and have some fun with him his last year, and I'm going to try and keep a couple around all the time, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Michelle. How about you? You looking for another Maggie's Delight?
Funny you should say so. I actually got my hands on Lauren's Delight, which is Maggie's mother, and I bred her last year to Somewhere Fancy, so she's due to foal in May. And Maggie's still there. She will be a 5-year-old. Second Dream Fair's on fire, so let's roll on, see maybe I can tackle her someday in the summer, and we'll see what happens. But any day in this industry, if you can continue and keep going, is a good day.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there any questions from the crowd? Okay, well, one more round of applause for... Oh, we got one? Okay, sorry. We got one. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this one's for Michelle.
Just one more, and this one's for Jen. Since this is put on by the PEI Standardbred Breeders Association, I have to point out that you have a great stable of overnight horses, and you've bought a lot of great horses from the States and Ontario. But you did something that a lot of people don't do. You have a really nice Atlantic-bred racehorse that you didn't have as a baby. You bought her Elm Grove Mistress. You bought her when she was older. She's went a pile of starts in a row, and she's won a pile of races. What does that say about the breed and, the horses we're producing on the East Coast, that they're competitive with, these nice American-bred mares?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience in maritime-bred horses. Like you said, a lot of mine are overnight horses that come from away that are American-bred or Ontario-bred. But she's an articulator mare, and she's definitely one of the toughest ones in the barn. She's consistent. She tries every night. She's definitely one of the stable stars in the barn, and I guess it just goes to show that she can be just as competitive as any horse that I have that's bred from outside the Maritimes.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks again. One more round of applause. And we have some gifts for you, ladies, before you go. Julie will give you your gift, and we'll get Gilles and Mark and Corey and Mike to come down, and we'll have our next panel ready to go. Thank you. Thank you, Alexa.
Hey, Les. Bit by bit. Here to support each other. Bit by bit. Thank you. Thank you.
Forever? Yeah. Going well, man? Yeah, really good. Nice setup next door for the... Yeah, great. That was great. Well, everything's working out great. Where's Mark and Corey? Okay, there's Mark. Where's Mark and Corey? Mike, how you doing? What's going on? What? What's that? Who, Mark? No. Oh, Glenn.
That's another super panel, and one thing from the first two panels, and I'm sure from the third one too, but from the first two, because we got some diversity there, I really encourage like boards when they're looking for new members to look for gender equality, look for the youth, and some fantastic ideas out of the first two panels that I know in meetings that unfortunately I've been in a lot of them the last few years, and it's nice that you think you've heard about everything and you talked about everything and heard about all the challenges and great ideas, but just in tonight we're hearing more. So I would encourage boards that are looking for new members to certainly look to people that we've just heard from in the last hour. So we got a nice panel here, guys, from Corey and Mike and Jill and Mark, so have at it.
Our final panel tonight, Selecting a Champion, features 4 of the top trainers and drivers in the Atlantic region. Mark Campbell, Gilles Barrio, Corey McPherson, and Mike McGuigan have developed, trained, and driven multiple Maritime Stake champions through the years. Here's a look back at some of those great horses.
3/4 up in 1, 31 and 2. Irish Ray homeward bound. On the outside is getting salty. Windermere got muscle along the rail. On the wire next, he's gonna remain perfect. Irish Ray in line to Mark Campbell in the Home Hardware Maritime Breeders 2-year-old trot.
Well, here is the undefeated 2-year-old trotter Irish Ray arriving at the winner's circle. Mark Campbell trains and drives, gives him 11 starts, 11 wins. Tonight, 201 and 2.
3/4 in 1, 25 and 2. Headed on home, Dusty Lane Goliath. Woodmere, Steel Deal moving into second. Third, Gascoigne Sunday, deep in the stretch now. Dusty Lane, Goliath takes Barrio all the way. Woodmere Steel Deal was second.
On his way to the 10th race winner's circle, number 3, Dusty Lane Goliath. Gilles Barrio does the training and the driving. The wire-to-wire victory in 1:53 and 2.
The Real Princess has opened up clear by 3/8 of a mile out. KC Starlight is second. Booyah third. Can't Stop the Lovin' fourth. Down the stretch she comes, and she is the Real Princess. Give her 12 in a row. In line to Corey McPherson.
Here comes the Real Princess into the 10th race winner's circle. She's driven a victory by Corey McPherson. She's perfect in her 3-year-old season.
It's all getting messy here. It's over coming for home. The last one standing is second. Rich's Northern Dream third. getting messy on Championship Sunday. All alone for Mike McGuigan in the Atlantic Breeders' Crown Final.
In the winner's circle from the fourth, the three-entry Getting Messy. Mike McGuigan in the driver's seat had him on top at every call, winning in 1:59 and a 1/5.
Please welcome Mark Campbell, Gilles Barrio, Corey McPherson, and Mike McGuigan to the 2023 Island Horse Breeders' Conference.
And you know, we just have to have a round of applause for these four people. You know, we have four of the best trainer drivers in Atlantic Canada, and they all agreed to come here tonight. Now, guys, you've all trained and driven some of the best horses we've ever seen on the Eastern Seaboard. And we'll start with Mark. Whenever you're looking for your next great horse, you know, right now we use the Atlantic Classic sale, is where a lot of our yearlings come from. You know, how do you start that process? What are you looking for?
You know, I grab the sale catalog homework before the sale comes.
And Gilles, what about you? You know, how do you go about selecting your next champion?
Basically, just go over the catalog, pick out the breeding. Big fan of breeding, dam side. Go look at the individuals, see what they look like, and just take it from there.
Yeah, you take it pretty cool then.
Pretty much. They gotta have a little. I don't like a small horse. I like medium size, smart looking head on them, and you know, I'm always looking for the next champion. So you're not gonna get a champion if you look at a small horse. So, you know.
Yeah, and do you pour over the sale book first, or do you want to see them?
Oh, definitely. Then you go look at them and take it from there.
Mike, what about you? How do you select a horse to come into your stable?
Well, it's kind of the same as Mark, really. You go through the sale book when you first receive it and kind of mark out the ones that you're not really interested in. You kind of go through the ranks and see what I enjoy seeing a mare that has a good mark, some money on their papers. And I go to the farms quite a bit. I go to Bruce's, I go to Jamie's, I go to Halmax, go all over the island. And I normally don't take my sale book the first couple times I go. I normally get out the truck and kind of look at the horse and see which ones I like and try to pick them out that, you know, by breeding and confirmation, stuff like that, and then go grab your book and see how you got along. Not always the ones that you were looking at, and sometimes some of the horses might shock you and surprise you, and it starts from there.
Yeah, sometimes you like to go into a blind and, you know, pick out a horse just by looks and figure out who it is afterwards, eh?
Yeah, exactly. If the horse has some dark ink on it with some money made on the dam side, I enjoy looking at that, and you know, sometimes you look at a horse and you really like it in the field and pedigree really does match up, so you have to kind of go to plan B and hope you get it for a decent price.
Corey, what about you?
Well, just like everybody else, you get the sale book, you study it a little bit. I like to look at sires that I like. I don't really go over the dam as much as the sires. I like to go to the farms and see them in the field and see how they move. I like to see them, how they react in a group. And just like Mike, I don't actually go there with the catalog right off the bat. I like to just look at the horse, and I like a nice looking horse. I'd take a nice looking horse with good conformation over a better bred horse with poor conformation.
Mark, outside of pedigree and conformation, are there other attributes that you see in a horse that you like and look for?
Kind of like Jill said too, you know, I look at a horse's head, like kind of a smart looking head, maybe an athletic looking horse. I mean, obviously you go to a field and a horse doesn't look like it's a racehorse. You probably don't really want it. You know, you're probably not going to go fast. So, you know, kind of I do that, and I kind of look to see, you know, I like going to the farms to see which horses are maybe the bosses, which horses kind of have a little edge to them, especially with fillies and mares. I like them with a little bit of edge, a little bit of hateness to them. If that makes sense. They have to have that willingness to, you know, kick some ass on the track.
Jill, you touched on it a little bit, but for you, what are you looking for when you go to a farm?
Basically, excuse me. I like a good size yearling. Conformation's number one. Obviously, if they don't stand good, they're not gonna go. You know, they're not what you want, really. Conformation, good-looking individual. Length, I like length and little length in their legs too. Like I say, I'm looking for the next champion, so you're not gonna get that from a small horse, or I like a medium-sized colt. Just basically that's it.
Mike, for you, is size and appearance important?
Yeah, a small horse, I don't, I kind of get away from those. It's hard to tell how big a horse is going to be when they're at such a young age. If they're in a group setting, you can tell which ones are going to be a little smaller than the other ones, obviously. But like Mark and Jill said, you have to have an athletic look to you. That really goes with any sport, to be honest with you. There's not a whole lot of ugly athletes out there, so you want one with a sharp head. I enjoy a horse that has a nice neck, especially in mares. You want them to be half rugged and stand good, and their appearance makes a big difference for me.
Same for you, Corey, about the athletic side of things and the appearance?
Yeah, just like Mike said, an ugly horse is an ugly horse. You got to have a nice looking horse. Most good looking horses are nice horses. And you just like to go to the farm and see how they move and how they react in the group and who's the boss. I like a horse that wants to be the boss, because that's their attitude, and they'll be like that for a long time.
And when you're looking at yearlings, is pedigree a big function of what you look at? Like, I know a lot of trainers, especially in the States and Ontario, are big on crosses, matching up sires in the pedigree and that kind of thing. Is the pedigree kind of one of the most important things you look at?
As far as that 2x2 and 4x4, I have no idea about any of that. Jimmy Gorman's very good at doing that, so he advises me on some of them. Like I say, I like to buy on more on the sire side and then research high on the mares, but if the mares never produced anything, I stay away from them, obviously. But I usually just like buying sires that I've had luck with.
What about you, Mike? Do you like crosses in the pedigree?
Yeah, pedigree's a big thing. Our breeding down here has come such a long way. In a very short period of time, it hasn't really been that long ago that you could go to the sale and buy a horse for $1,000 and hope to do okay. I remember buying a little filly by the name of She's a Mint. We had a big group. It was I believe we called the Polar Rice Stable. We think we paid $900 for $1,000, but she was in the ring and she looked good and she had terrible pedigree, and we took a shot at her and she turned out to be okay for us. She raced decent, won some big stake races, and had a lot of fun with her. But the pedigree nowadays, you don't see a She's a Mint in the sale anymore. It's they're all well bred. They come from strong families, and it goes right from second, third, fourth generations, and it's hard not to get a well bred horse in the Maritimes now.
Jills, what about you? Do you have any specific ideas when it comes to looking at a pedigree?
Myself, I'm big on the dam side of it. First, second, third dam. Stallion, I like stallions too, but the dam means a lot to me, and basically that's what I go by.
And so you've had good horses like Dusty Lane Goliath, and we could go on and on and on about all the champions you've trained. Do you find that there's a kind of a select type that you look for, a type of horse?
Not necessarily. I like an athletic-looking individual, Outside of that, conformation means a lot to me too. As long as they got the athletic look and conformation and size, what else do you look for?
What about you, Mark? What about crosses and pedigrees with you?
As for crosses, no, I'm not really into that. Like, I'm kind of like Corey. I'm a little lost when it comes to that. Like, but on the dam side, Mike talked about wins or money. I like to see dam side with wins. They don't have to have a ton of money, but money's nice. But if they show wins all down the page, second or third dams, and there's winning, they know how to win. So hopefully they pass that along. I mean, and there's a page where if you turn a page and there's 6 dams on it, well, probably not going to look at that one because it obviously hasn't produced a whole lot. You like seeing an open up page and there's only 2 or 3 dams. Well, it's pretty good.
And do you think like a will to win kind of runs in families?
Absolutely, yeah, big time. I mean, I think a lot has to do with the dam side, and I think a lot of it is passed down on it. I mean, that's the reason we got Pappy Go-Go when we did, because the dam side was, had a lot of wins on it.
Yeah, they're all a lot of stakes winners out of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was Ohio bred, but still, you're winning somewhere. It's, somewhere.
Mark, we'll stick with you. What did your training program look like when you started with yearlings?
It's pretty soft for the first 2 months, 2.5 months. We don't do a whole lot. Try to teach them some manners, gate them up. I take things pretty easy. 2-year-old year is probably their longest, toughest year of their racing career. They start in October, November, and they don't stop till October, November. So the first 2 or 3 months, it's pretty low key at my place.
Jill, how about you for you starting on your training program?
I'm totally opposite from Mark. I start right off, hobbles within 2 weeks, head poles, whatever they need before winter settles in, and after that, they're all broke and ready to go, and just put a foundation into them.
Mike, you?
Well, I'm kind of with Jill's by this panel up here. I think we should maybe follow a little what Mark's doing. Yeah, the first few days, it's pretty well go time for them. We don't mess around with them a whole lot. I have good help, so we throw the hobbles on them within the first couple weeks. Try to get them gated up. Our winters can be rough here, so we my father's here tonight, so he would probably like me to take a little more easy on them, but yeah, we go right at it. We put them to work, and I find that if you get a good foundation in them with the bad days and bad weather, you can give those days the breaks. So yeah, we try to get them gated up and get them to work right away.
How about you, Corey?
I like to, same as Jill's and Mike, I like to show them all the gear right off the bat and make sure they're used to it and teach them manners. And after that, I take it pretty laxy-daisy. I just kind of go along with them. And like Mike says, the winters are rough, so you try and get you just try to get as much slow work into them and lots of foundation after that.
And Corey, what's the best maritime bred baby you've had in your barn? And is there anything that set them apart from some of the other horses you've trained? Is there anything that you think made them special?
The best horse I ever broke and trained down would be Waiting on a Woman. I didn't race him. Mitchell raced him at 2 and 3, but I broke him and trained him down, and he could almost talk. He was so smart. Dave Tierney showed up at Ronnie's one day with a halter in his hand, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm going to lead that colt." And I said, "Yeah, sure." So he walked out, drew the halter on the horse, walked him around the track twice, pulled the halter off, kicked him out. I said, "That was unbelievable." And he came back the next day and did the same thing. And to break him, we just took him in, threw a harness on him, and went. I remember very early on, Mitchell was in Ontario actually, and I messaged him in like January, and I said, "This thing's a freak." And he said, "How do you know?" I said, "I'm not telling you anything more. He's just a freak." And he did everything perfect all the time. Like, he was very just intelligent and a very athletic horse.
Mike, what about you? What's the best baby you've had in your barn? And is there anything that made that horse stand apart from the other ones?
Well, I had a real nice 2-year-old filly last year that actually stands out on the trot side of things, Camco Aaron. she just did everything right from the get-go. She's a little nasty in the barn. She can get on your nerves a little bit, as Julie could probably attest to. But she's just a nice mare. She's good gaited. I don't know if you can see or find a 2-year-old trotter that's as well gaited as her. She can snap off the gate, and she's easily rigged out. On the pacing side of things, I had a filly by the name of Ari Shabla. She was you have the full brother now. She was just a nice filly right from the get-go. She did everything right. She gave me a lot of headaches. She was hot, but she had really bad feet, and she had a bad jaw, and she overcame that. She refused the gate a few times in a couple big stake races, which I really didn't get really mad at her for those. I didn't really blame her. There were some days that she could barely get out of the stall, or if you were that sore. She made front. She was hard to get around. She was a good filly. She made us some big money and won some big races for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Jills, what about you? What's your best maritime bred baby you've ever had, and why? What made them special?
Oh, I'd have to go with Goliath, I guess. For what he did. And I didn't think he was, training down, sure, he was nice colt. Did everything you asked him to do, but for me to say that he would win in 53, no, that didn't really cross my mind, but he was good, and did what he did at the Meadowlands his first couple starts till he got sick there. That really, that opened my eyes really how good he was.
Yeah, he was a special horse, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Mark, what about you? Best baby in your barn, and why?
I kind of thought about this a lot. I mean, it kind of changes. When I first read the question, it was probably Proven Desire and Pappy Go-Go, really. Then, you have to throw Philly 47 in there, and then obviously Irish Ray. And they were all kind of different. They all did things different. I mean, Irish Ray was a complete nut for most training down, and then one day it just all clicked. Pappy Go-Go did everything pretty well right from the go, but they were both really, really well gated, which I think you need. And then the other two were just, they were lazy and didn't really want to do it until the closer I got to the races. And then they just kind of kept plugging along and became really good horses.
Mark, we'll stick with you. What's the biggest advancement you see in local breeding the last few years in the region?
I think just the new mares coming in. I mean, Landon and I talked about this on the way in. Like, even the new mares coming in, the people are keeping the maritime breds afterwards, still have that American or Ontario bred of better bred horses in them. So I think that's why you're seeing more success with maritime breds, obviously, and even as brood mares here, maritime breds.
Jill, what about you on that side, the breeding side in Atlantic Canada the last few years, or even longer than that?
Just the broodmare band's way stronger. The breeders are buying better broodmares, and our studs. We got some nice stallions here on the island too. So they cross, and we got a good crop of babies around.
Mike, would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of money being invested in these mares and stallions, but the breeders do such a great job. They do a fantastic job, and it's not a cheap business to be in by any means. And the amount of feed and the process of going from getting the mare to birthing the foal to getting it to the sale ring has come drastically, and they our breeders, hats off to them because they do a fantastic job.
Corey, how about you, the breeding side the last few years in the Maritimes?
Yeah, it's definitely the broodmares. The breeders have spent a lot of money in improving the broodmare bands, and like Mark said, even the maritime bred mares that stay still have strong American and Ontario blood in them. So definitely the broodmares.
And Jills, you're kind of the veteran of the crowd here. And you know, when we're talking about Atlantic bred horses, you know, we've heard a lot of stories about how bad yearlings used to be to break. But of course, you would have lived it. You know, how big of a difference do you think it makes, the pedigree on these horses, and how much easier they are to train as young horses now?
Night and day, really. I mean, from back 20, 30 years ago till to this day, even like this year, we broke 8 or 9 of them, and you know, it's just the breeders are doing such a great job with them now and teaching them, you know, leading and working with them, and it's just unbelievable how well mannered they are this day and age.
Yeah, definitely. You'd have to do things a lot differently when you were younger.
Oh my good Lord.
I guess that's an answer all in itself. So we'll go back to Mark. You know, where do you see the breeding industry going in 5 to 10 years? And, you know, what steps do you think we need to do, you know, for the breeders that are here tonight? What steps do they need to do to ensure that we keep having success?
I think we're going in the right direction. Like we all said, the breeders are bringing in more mares, better mares, younger mares, and they're producing. And you know, it's just going to keep going. I mean, we do need stallions. I mean, I was thinking when we were one question earlier, like Woodmere or Steelhead Hanover, I think would have completely changed this whole game if he had stuck around a little longer. For here, I mean, those horses that he produced, the few that he had were, well, Jill said Goliath, and I drove Steel Deal. Like, speed was just something I never, you know, for maritime breds, it was crazy. But I mean, to get something like that back again, but there is some new stallions coming, and I think it's gonna, you know, help the breed. You know, the biggest things too, we need to resell some of these horses too, so our owners keep reinvesting every year at the sale, which is, you know, something that's keeps everybody happy. The breeders, the trainers, the owners, everybody's got to be a little bit happy.
Yeah, and you know, and like Mark, we talk about Atlantic bred horses like they're something different, but you know, a lot of the stallions that are standing here could have went to almost any jurisdiction in North America, and a lot of the mares would be just fine at major breeding farms. You know, it's kind of, we're at the point now where what exactly is an Atlantic bred anymore? Like Woodmere Steel Deal, he had a terrific pedigree on him.
Yeah, big time. And I mean, he was just a beautiful little horse. He was kind of smaller to medium, but I remember seeing him at Bruce's. He was just, you fell in love right at first sight. I wanted to train him, but I got to drive him, so it was almost as good.
Yeah. Jills, what about you? Where do you see the breeding industry in 5 to 10 years, and what do we need to do to keep ensuring success?
You know, the rate it's going now, we're heading the right direction. My God, I mean, you know, the breeders are buying brood mares here, left, right, and center. If you look on track there or on gate, Bruce just bought 3 or 4 new mares, and Blaine keeps buying mares. I mean, everybody's getting better brood mares, and there's studs coming. So I can't see how they're gonna, you know, all they got to do is keep going forward. More money.
More money in the stakes.
Yeah, that would help. But I mean, it's not bad. I mean, this last couple of years, the money's gone up drastically, and we're racing for good money here now. Yeah. If we could get Nova Scotia and the other province on board, it'd be even that much better too. But PEI is pretty good as money-wise.
Yeah, it's nice to see a bunch of $18,000 and $20,000 stake races all throughout the season.
Definitely.
Mike, what about you? Where do you see the breeding industry going, and what do we need to do to ensure that we have success?
Well, you know, just as Jills and Mark said, you know, everyone's doing such a fantastic job, but you have to have owners buying these babies. So, you know, you have to market yourself. You have to go out there and get new owners. Right now, we have, you know, in our barn, we have Josh McDonald, Mark and Janice. We got Jamie Whalen. We have Ron Coles that is new to the business. You have to have those new owners to protect the lexicas of the racing industries and the breeding industry. So, you know, getting out there and using your voice as, you know, as trying to get as many people involved as you can, and having an open door concept will, I think, protect the breeding industry for sure. And every little bit helps, right? So, you know, work together and work forward kind of thing.
yeah, all parts of the industry need to kind of be in sync to make sure we keep having success. What about you, Corey?
I think we're headed in the right direction. I think as far as breeders are concerned, there's lots of young blood getting involved in that, which is great to see, because if there's no horses born, there's no horses to race. So they are really a foundation of the whole industry. And there's been great support the last few years for them. So as long as that support keeps going and some more young breeders get involved, it's a very tough job, believe me. You're up half the night for a lot of the winter. It's not that fun, but it's an acquired taste, and hopefully there's more get involved with it and stick with it.
Does anybody in the crowd have a question for guys?
This is for all four of you. When it comes to a stallion that has its first crop, what makes you give that yearling a shot?
Pretty well just seeing the horse, what he did on the track. I mean, you know, I love first crop stallions. We've had some pretty good luck with some of them. They don't really scare me. I like trying them. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, you know, the better horses have been coming here as studs, and so I don't think it's really hard to pick or choose one. I think it's just what your flavor is.
Well, just go by past performance. You know, what he's done and what he's bought, what his family. I mean, pretty much that's it, really. I mean, mostly past performance, what he's done over the years, and
yeah, it's kind of echo the same answer, really. You don't want to you watch some race replays and the stallion has some spares on or a pair of felt knee boots. You're probably going to steer clear of that. But you guys have a beautiful stallion by Peng Shui out there, and like Ari Shabla was by Peng Shui. It was a first time crop, and she held the track record here for 3-year-old fillies. They you know, like Jill says, what that stallion's by, how they look, and you know, their records, money, and the will to be a racehorse, I guess, pass it on to their babies.
I guess just how good the stallion was as a racehorse, obviously, how fast they were, how sound they were. If they show inconsistencies in lines, maybe, I don't know, if a horse wasn't consistent every week in soundness, I might kind of steer clear. But how their gait was, there's many ways to go with a first stallion, and lots of reasons to go against one. But past performance and how good a horse they really were, I guess.
Do we have any more questions from the crowd? It's not that often we get 4 of the top guys sitting here, and you can ask them anything you want.
Not anything.
We can ask, Corey. You don't have to answer.
We're talking about the great investment the breeders are making, bringing in broodmares, bringing in stallions. You guys down there mentioned the residual mares and so on that stay here, maritime stakes, maritime breds. You know, next year you'll probably sell 20 to 25 in the sale that are Ontario bred, US bred. We're talking about limited stakes in the Maritimes. What about an Atlantic Classic sale? Let's make some more racing for these horses so that they might stay here and not leave. Any thoughts?
You mean like a 4-year-old stake or something like that? Is that what you're saying?
He's thinking like a stake just for horses that were sold at the Atlantic Classic, regardless of who they're sired by, where they're born, whatever.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Gotcha.
Jills?
You know, I don't think it's feasible to keep one around, really. I mean, the money wouldn't be there for them to race every week. Like, that's my own opinion. And there'd be very few that would, I don't know. It seems to me they tried it before and it didn't work. Am I right or wrong? Didn't they try a stake, like keep the three common fours around?
He's talking about like just horses sold in the sale.
Oh, just
like a stake race just for those horses.
like here in Crapple?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, kind of like a sale that's just for the 128 horses that were sold in the Atlantic Classic last year.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it will work or not. Don't know.
Mike, what do you think? He's putting you on the spot, I know.
Is he ever
Yeah.
putting me on the spot? Well, right now I think we have we have in our barn 5 Ontario bred horses. We have a 3-year-old filly that Mark and I and Josh own together. Speaking of Shadow, and she had a very successful 2-year-old season. And obviously I'm training her down right now to send her to Toronto. Hopefully everything goes well. The money has to come from somewhere. So, you know, for you know, you have your Atlantic Sire Stakes, and then you have your other stakes that your Island Breeders that those horses are eligible for. So, I don't know. I guess you'd have to look into more of a, you know, of the industry of where that funding could come from.
Corey, what do you think?
I think there's a stake for the trotters, the
Yeah,
Buddy
the-
Campbell stake.
It's the Brian Andrew.
Brian Andrew.
Yeah, it's sponsored by the cell.
And it seems very successful. I know you can pay into it after the fact, but just like Mike said, you got to find the money to go for. Where you find the funding or the sponsorship would be the key thing, but you look into it.
Corey, the last thing I want to ask you, you know, we're talking about the Atlantic Classic sale. We've had 2 of the best sales in the history of Atlantic Canadian harness racing in 2021 and 2022, thanks to a lot to the work by Julie Jameson, who doesn't get enough credit. There's no question about that. You know, but that doesn't mean that we're doing everything perfect. Corey, do you think there's anything that we can do better? Because we always need to keep moving forward.
I'm not going to criticize because I don't want to do that work. I don't know what the sale could do better. Probably, I think more trainers need to get into the fractional ownership and put themselves out there and try and set up. It's another thing. It's hard to buy a horse on your own and sell pieces out. But if there was some kind of funding there to get fractional ownership started, that might help. But I'm not really sure how you would go about that.
Mike, what do you think? Do you think there's anything the sale committee or one of your favorite owners, Julie Jameson, could do a little bit better?
Well, the sale does a great job. It's out there. It's public. They're open to the public for anyone to go attend. To be honest with you, you know, our stable, my owners has spent a pile of money last year. You know, $30,000. Mike Pollard bought a filly for $44,000, and that's not, you know, that's not small change anymore. So it's getting into big money. I wouldn't mind seeing some breeders invest in to vet your horse out. I'm not saying a full vet out. A simple X-ray of the knees, hocks. You know, maybe do a little blood work and have that posted with the sale catalog. I'd like to make sure, you know, if to the faint of heart or naked eye, you're looking at a horse and you're hoping that it's healthy and looking at its hocks and the hocks are clean, and then you buy the horse and a month later you know CD chips taken out of it. Yes, breed scope would be nice too. They're getting good money. We're you know, our owners are passing out good money, so you know, maybe to get a horse vetted out would be feasible for everybody.
Absolutely. Jules, what do you think?
To me, they're doing as good as a job as anywhere as I've ever been. Harrisburg, Lexington, and all them places. I mean, you know, for me to criticize them, I can't, because they're doing a great job, so.
Mark, what do you think?
The only thing I ever kind of thought, and I've talked to a few different people, is maybe I hear a lot of my owners saying, like, you know, well, they might have a 3-year-old still racing, and they say, well, if, you know, if I had sold him before the sale, I would have bought this one, or I might have bought this horse. Maybe if you could ever push it back, but I know it's hard with the venue. We have it, and, you know, the week after the sale, the ice goes in there. But, you know, if the 3-year-old stakes ended and then a week later, or 2 weeks later, the sale was, and, you know, you might have some more capital for some people to spend more money.
Yeah, it's a really busy weekend, isn't it?
It's kind of a rush, yeah.
Now, I have one question that just came in from one of our favorite drivers in Cape Breton, Gerard Kennedy, and he wants me to ask it to all of you. He's talking about the Atlantic Sire Stakes. Do you think there's any merit into having kind of like a grassroots kind of final for the B horses in the Sire Stakes? Do you think that's something that should happen? Mark, you go first.
Like more than a consolation that we already go for?
Yeah, he's thinking like horses that just raced in the B.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, they do that in Ontario. They have a grassroots final. I mean, why couldn't it work here?
Gilles, what do you think?
I think he has a great point there. That'd be a great event for the B colts or B stakes.
Just kind of something final for the
Sure,
second tier.
yeah, a little more money for them. And
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that would be a fantastic idea. Jamie Whalen and I owned a horse, Foxy Gigolo, a few years back, and she was a nice little filly. She was okay in her right class, and she was a grassroots filly, and we raced her as a grassroots filly all along. And she ended up picking up some points, and she was like 15th down the chart, and she ended up having to race the gold that in the final, in the Breeders' Crown final, and she made a break on the first turn. But yeah, I think that would be a fantastic idea for grassroots, to have a final. It works well in Toronto. They go for good money, and people can race their horse and kind of classify them as they wish.
Yeah, and kind of still crowns a champion kind of for the second tier. Corey, what do you think?
I would have to think it'd be a great idea. Your A colts and your B colts, they cost the same to feed and look after every day. So with the guy that's very happy with his B colt at the end of the year, if he finished second in a final, they'd be thrilled, and they're happy to come back next year. I think it would be a great idea.
Absolutely. What about anything else from the crowd? Do you have any more questions? Well, I want to thank everybody that came for this final panel. Mark, Gilles, Mike, Corey, thanks for your time, and it was fantastic listening to all your responses. We have a round of applause for them. And the 2023 PI Standardbred Breeders Association Conference, it keeps going tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. We have a vet panel in the morning, then there's lunch. Afternoon, we have Dean and Ashley Wilson from Ontario. They're coming on for a Q&A session. We have some other information, Standardbred Canada. Julie's making a presentation. Like to see you all again tomorrow morning. And everybody that's here tonight, yep. We have the room next door. The races are on. We have a whole bunch of appetizers. I think someone says something about a bar. I'm not sure. So anyways, everybody head next door, and thank you very much for coming, and thank you to all the panelists tonight. What a fantastic job.